Doesn't work without the glasses or anything, but I figured I'd give it a try. That's right, Max Namick, our chair sponsor in the SPL. Go to needforseat.com, use code SMITEMAX, and game and watch Netflix or whatever you do on your computer in comfort. Yeah, thanks to Max Namick, one of the most comfortable chairs, the most comfortable chair I've ever owned, and very easy to put together, as proven by that video. Gormizer is with me, though, for the Leviathans versus the Solar Scarabs. Are you feeling hypnotized, Gore?
Always.
Look into my eyes.
It's hard not to.
Do they sell glass? I wonder if they sell like spirally glasses.
Probably. Didn't they used to
probably do,
in
right?
like I don't know how old those would be. You know how like in old cartoons you could always buy them in like the newspaper.
That's right.
That's what I'm thinking. I imagine you tear it out.
Hypno
And it was like
glasses,
right next to the
Yep.
X-ray specs that are not going to work.
Right.
Don't waste your quarter on that one. You're going to move forward with your hypno glasses and they'll spin. You probably can't see through them though.
Yeah, the downside is you are forced to sell chairs for the rest of your days once you buy those.
It's a cursed item.
It's a cursed item. You have to buy
Oh,
chairs.
no.
Look, this is actually a pretty interesting matchup, Gore, because of the changes that have gone between these two teams, and it is also our final matchup of the weekend after a long, because of the number of games type weekend that we've had here in the SPL, a 3-gamer to start things off. You and I just casted a 3-gamer between the Kings and the Titans, and now the Atlantis Leviathans and the Solar Scarabs will finish out the weekend. And now we have some of those teams breaking free of the consistency matrix, I've called it, there in the middle. And so the Camelot Kings a bit on the rise here. And so now it's very important standings-wise for the Atlantis Leviathans to grab themselves a win here. They would be tied for third place with the Jade Dragons should they get a win. But they would be sole possession of fourth place if the Atlantis Leviathans end up losing here. Solar Scarabs, they want to create some distance, yes, correct. The Solar Scarabs want to create some distance between themselves and the Valhalla Valkyries. But Gore, this one has a little extra sprinkled into it, doesn't it, because of the roster changes that have happened. Notably, the Atlantis Leviathans have the Scarabs' old Hunter and Zapman. And so I think that adds some intrigue here.
Yeah, it's going to make things doubly interesting because Zap admittedly has looked better on the Leviathans than he did on the Scarabs. I think he's actually been able to improve. And I guess the way to word it is he has not himself improved, although maybe he has a little bit. It has been the team around him that makes it look so much just night and day to what he's been able to accomplish here on the Leviathans. And I think that's the biggest thing is the Leviathans have always had a great track record with their carries because they are very good at protecting their back line. Their front line is incredible. And so having Hardcore go back over into solo lane, he's been doing a hell of a job over there. You pair up Zap with Rong Yu, and outside of the occasional, hey, we said something in Spanish that Zap might not understand, it seems to be working out really well.
Hey, Zapman said he knows the word for
he does
go in and
he
leave.
does get out.
And he can do that. Yeah, Zapman's looked good. This team has done a great job of helping, or Zapman and the team really both have synergized well in facilitating one another's play style. And it's a team that is scary to go up against. They were anyway, the Leviathans were, with how things were at the beginning of Season 8. Now, maybe even a little bit more scary. Yarkor's looked back to his former self over there in the solo lane. Zapman looks very comfortable. This team is going to be on the rise here and has top team potential if this continues.
And I know we're talking about Zap, and I think what Zap adds to this team and carry is the fact that he's very versatile. He will play damn near anything, and he's going to be able to suffice on it, and it's going to look good, especially with the rest of the crew around him. But I do want to give some props to Hardcore because he did a really good job of last year being a great solo laner, swapping and being a great carry, and then swapping back to continue being a great solo laner. So I think it speaks wonders to how strong this team is from top to bottom.
Yeah, big thumbs up all around to everyone on the Leviathans. And then, of course, the mid 3v3 that stayed the same, they continue to look good as well. We've mentioned Zapman, and Zapman joins me now for the pregame interview. Zap against the old squad here, going up against the Solar Scarabs. What's going through your mind going up against the team that you started the season with?
Yeah, I mean, I got nothing but love for the guys on the Scarabs, and it's definitely a little bit weird seeing their names across in the lobby.
Of course.
Right now, we're actually in the lobby right now, and I'm seeing their names over there. I'm like, hey, that looks familiar, you know. But yeah, no, I'm excited to play against them, and I hope they do well, but not too well.
Can you chat in the lobby? Like, are you sending them messages right now? I don't know how any of that works.
I can whisper them. I can't talk to them in the lobby though.
Got it. Fair enough. Look, this team, since you joined, you had back-to-back games against the Kings and the Bolts that went 3, but you guys looked good in those matchups. You finally get a win on your new roster. up against the Valkyries. Those first couple games, I imagine, tough because you want to win them. But did you get a real sense early on here that this was going to be a very good team despite losing a couple 3-game sets?
Yeah, 100%. I got that sense. Those 3-game sets were actually in winning positions in both third games. We're up big against the Kings. We were up big against the Bolts, and then someone called an end call. I don't know who it was, but someone called an end call against the Bolts. That didn't go well. Yeah, but no. Anyway, after that, we knew we had those games in the bag. A couple of late game mishaps, and since then, I kind of just knew we were going to be a great team, and it's only up from here.
And those are 2 top 3 teams you had to go against, and then you go against the Valkyries, you get a win there, and now you're going to go up against the Scarabs, feeling comfortable with your chances in that one as well. As that, man, thanks for sitting down with me. I'll let you get back to the lobby, maybe send some whispers to your old teammates. We'll catch you in game.
Thank you.
Yep. And so the Solar Scarabs will try to punch back against their previous hunter with Stuart now on their team. Gore, you had some thoughts there maybe for our friend Zap.
Well, mainly that Zap, he highlighted, I think, one of the most important parts, which is I think that this team in the Leviathans already had really good shot calling, but Zap has added another level to it, which I think it is, granted, while sometimes maybe it ends up not being exactly what you would like, as he had highlighted, it will open up that conversation, not just for the rest of Phase 2, but then in maybe Phase 2 playoffs, then maybe we start looking at Phase 3 when Worlds comes into the equation. I think keeping your eye on the Scarabs, on the Leviathans is important, and just as much, that exact same thing applies inverse to the Scarabs because they lost Zap as a shot caller.
They lost Zap, but they gained Stuart, right? And so that's the big pivot. And then, of course, Scream is on this team as well. We'll talk plenty about Scream because Scream looked good in his first game with the Solar Scarabs the other day. The Scarabs lost, but similar to how I just asked Zap, the Leviathans were losing these 3-game sets, but you looked good. You could probably make a similar argument about the Solar Scarabs and Scream joined in. But Stuart joined this squad, Gore, and it hasn't been the easiest of roads. I mean, talk about a tough environment to join into. You join the SPL. It's a roster that's back and forth. Who knows what's going to happen here in the jungle. All of that considered, I think Stuart has stepped up to the table pretty well and has room to grow, but hasn't shied away from that challenge.
And this is the growing pains. Like, by no means, look, you look at the standings, this is a quote-unquote rough team to step in on just because they haven't necessarily been winning a whole ton. But, admittedly, this is maybe the best that I think that this roster has looked this year in terms of how they're going to mesh together. Like you said, Stuart and Scream kind of jumping into it, it's going to take a couple of weeks for the growing pains to really get out of the way. And so next week we're probably looking at a much stronger Scarabs, and the week after it's even stronger after that. But here, they've been able to meld pretty well. And you have to look at what Stuart's been able to accomplish because a lot of these highlights you'll notice are on the Sturdy Artisans, a team that dominated really well in the SCC. He stepped in last year and played with Inbound when Obey needed a hunter for a couple of sets, and he's got enough competitive experience to really showcase what he has to offer here. And so far he's been able to fit in pretty well. Again, it's kind of remaining to be seen what he's going to bring. But I think the addition of Stuart, maybe, again, depending on how the shot calling goes, there's maybe a lot of stuff behind the scenes, but numerically and at least in capabilities, at worst, or maybe at best, is like equal trade for Zap, depending on some of the stuff you lose from Zap shot calling and things like that. Yeah. It is going to be technically, like, quote unquote, a downgrade, but of course we have yet to see what he can grow into, which is what I am most excited to see. But I'll also say adding in Scream with what was already, I think, a really, really good team. Like, Bobby has been looking better and better throughout. I mean, look, go watch an Obey game from the beginning of Phase 1 last year and then watch a Scarabs game from this year. It's night and day. Yeah, he's been making massive improvements. Same things for Baronic, who's had some insane games, as well as SOT. I think this is a team that has started to come together and is in a finally good position to do so. And I'm actually happy that Phase 2 doesn't count for Worlds now because they're not really impacting something so heavily important to their careers right now. They get these growing pains out of the way while they still have time. And then we get to see what they truly get to do in Phase 3.
And I think Baronic has had a great mentality about it. Always tweets after his sets. You get the sense that, of course they want to be winning, because who doesn't? But this is a team that has accepted, all right, we went through some big roster changes. We swapped a lot of things around. 2 very important roles get changed up. These are the games where the growing is going to happen. And the Solar Scarabs have shown that they have a good mentality around some of those changes.
And that's
I think
the best part.
Is good. Right. The mentality has to be there to facilitate that growth. Let's see what Picks and Bans, though, has in store for us, Gore, for game number 1 between the Atlantis Leviathans and the Solar Scarabs. Because I think the Leviathans, you watched the Solar Scarab set the other day, the first set of the Scream era on the Solar Scarabs. You're probably a little concerned about what Scream is able to do because he looked great.
And so this is going to sound really mean, but I mean it in a nice way.
No.
Scream did spend a lot of time last year on the bottom team. I mean, E-United by no means was winning a ton, but Scream always looked good in spite of that. Same thing, Hurry had some really good games in spite of that. But I think this team has a lot more potential than that team. Something about E-United didn't click, but something about this Scarabs roster, at least in my mind, feels like it's going to mesh together way better. And I'm curious to see how Scream is going to bring not just the veteranship, the consistency that he's had in his play, but also his eclectic god pool. I mean, last year, we've talked about it. People were even talking to me on Twitter about it earlier today, but Bastet is suddenly an option in the SPL because Scream was the only person who played her last year. He's the only one who we've really see have this crazy success on her. And that is just a different god that all of a sudden you have to be worried about. Scream brings another god pool into the equation that I think is making the Scarabs even more of a threat.
In the 2 games that we've seen Scream so far, it's been Camazotz and Susano, so definitely not run-of-the-mill.
Not the Bastet. I forgot her name. I wanted to say Bologna, and I was like, why? It's not Bologna. Not the Bologna that I highlighted, but it showcases that he's willing to go a little deeper.
Well, Umoja gets banned out, so does the Artemis and the Giannis. And so, Gore, the Artemis, this is such an interesting point. That's such a strong Zapman pick. You would think the Artemis would be, but the Leviathans banning that out while in first pick has shown that they have no intention of grabbing that pick anyway, because you could leave that up and pick it for yourself at something aggro highlighted during picks and bans in our last set. I feel like that's a really strong Zapman pick, but maybe they've got something else in store here for Zap. Gilgamesh and Osiris, as well as Odin, both take a ban. Fafnir left open, Fafnir locked in.
And I think this is what it is. Think of if you first pick Artemis, think of everybody, you're prioritizing Zap, but you're leaving a lot of picks on the table for the Scarabs to scoop up and look really good with. I mean, right now, Tiamat's still available. Morgan the Fae still available. It's a rare day to see Tiamat in a game and not get first pick. And the Scarabs maybe burned a little bit too recently in their memory, did lose their games when they were picking up the Tiamat earlier this week when they played the Dragons. And so maybe trying to figure out some flexibility. Baronic also looked really good on Morgan Le Fay last week when they were able to play her. But I think this is the interesting conversation, because if you ban that Artemis, you don't have to worry about it. Look, Zap's going to play Heimdall if you pick it for him. Zap's going to play whatever you lock in. And so I think getting the Artemis out of there limits Stuart more than it hurts them.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so Zapman has shown us his flexibility. Stuart needs to show us his flexibility still, and I believe he'll have the ability to do so. I was excited about a potential Thor there, but it won't be the Thor. Instead, it's Tiamat
Not yet.
and Erlang Shen. Not yet. Know. You're right. There's still the opportunity, Gore. And so I will keep my hopes high that Thor will make his valiant return here soon enough.
You said that, and I started humming High Hopes.
Oh, I thought you were
Disco.
going to start. I thought you had a point to make, so I cut myself off.
No, I was mumbling a song in my head to myself because I don't want to get DMCA'd. Because then I get yelled at.
Right.
Because I sang
And then I would also get. You would be DMCAing me too.
Well, the channel would get the thing,
right,
and then I'd get yelled at for hey man, don't sing on broadcast, and I'd be like, all right.
Right, but I would also get a negative rotation through all of that there as well. So yes, good call there, Gore, to keep the singing in the old head. I'm sure you're great at it.
Very analytical disc right now.
That's right. Fafnir, Kilcullen are the front lines that the Leviathans have for themselves here. And so look, Fafnir. We've gotten to the point now where we've seen so much Fafnir, we know what this pick can do. But then you pair a Kilcullen and a Raijin with that. The Leviathans have gotten off to a great start here. Plenty of pressure for Julio in that lane with the Kilcullen pick, and then something for Shinto and the Raijin that we know he can make plays on.
So it will be wild when I tell you the most picked gods for, I want to say, each of the roles for the Leviathans, because you'll never guess that Fafnir in Phase 2 has been in half of their games, first off. Rongyu has played this god more than anybody else right now. And admittedly, a lot of people get banned from him, so it's not like he has any choice.
Do you have the exact number of games he's played?
He's played 9 games of Fafnir.
Fafnir's been picked 23 times according to the screen.
So he's 9 out of the 23.
He's just shy of half of the
total
the
games.
Plays that Fafnir's gotten.
They've got that. They typically go for Gilgamesh. When it comes to mid, Raijin is tied with Baba Yaga, but he's 5-0, Shinto is, on this Raijin, so it's a very good pick for them. And Kukulkan has been the go-to for Hardcore since he swapped back over there, and it was one of those things, I think the other day, I said, it kind of feels like it might be a crutch, and then he just absolutely slaughtered everybody, and then I decided,
that's on you.
It's not a crutch. He's just really good at Kukulkan, and there's no reason to not pick it if he's going to play it. And I think the same goes for the Fafnir and the Raijin here.
Well, the Solar Scarabs, Gore, we talked a little bit earlier about what would Zapman play? Well, it's not going to be the Artemis, it's not going to be Rom, and it's not going to be Heimdall or Hachiman as the Solar Scarabs grab that pick for Stewart here. There's still a lot of viable hunters, and when we sat down with the Tartarus Titans this earlier this week on Monday, I was asking Cyclone Spin some questions about the meta and what his mindset is. Feels like in his eyes there's Artemis, there's a big old block of carries kind of all together there, and so there's still plenty of viability for Zapman to lock in here for himself. Loki picked up here. Wow. A strong pick now for the Leviathan score, and you're excited about that one.
Well, it's something that I'm surprised. Wow, doubly. This is a double surprise at the very bottom. Not exactly. If you had asked me to predict this, I don't think I ever would have gotten these bottom two. If I'm being completely honest with you, just numbers-wise, it's not something I've been going to. But the Loki is a good pick. Panatom played this a lot in the early of Phase 1. Looked really good on it when he played it there. Is going to do a good job here, I think, getting to the back to the Tiamat. Although Tiamat can self-peel, Hachiman will be in danger. I am a little curious to see how it's going to work because I don't think he's going to have an easy time, but I think it'll be a fun game to see how he makes it slot into the rest of this team. Plus, look, the top three I already highlighted is incredibly strong, but the Zapalo, I guess, the way Zapman's Zapalo is just, it's been here forever. And granted, this isn't every time I think Zapman Apollo, I think, okay, we're diving some Phoenixes, let's get into it. Those are the days of yore. He's still really, really solid on this, though, and I'm wondering where this ult is going to come into the equation, because we just saw the Chernobog and how important global ults can be. Apollo gets that, admittedly with a little bit more of a mana drain and a little more time to travel, but it's still going to put him anywhere on the map.
We got to talk a little bit about the Solar Scarabs draft as well, because they've got a strong draft here for themselves as well, between the Tiamat, the Erlang Shen.
Tiamat's real good.
If that's something that Scream can definitely make some plays on, the Erlang Shen is. Terra has proven to be a formidable support up to this point here so far in Season 8, and then Hercules is there. I see Hercules on the Scarabs, and I want it to be inbound because I just like the way inbound looks when he plays that pick. SOT's got to be right up there, though, as well. If this ends up being Hercules in the solo lane, I think there's playmaking potential with a guy like SOT playing.
And it should be a fun matchup to watch how they fare specifically against Kukulkan and Hardcore, but as they transition, it's also going to be who makes those rotations. We've seen Hardcore leaving the lane a lot sooner, going to mid lane and being proactive in some of those 3v3s that all of a sudden become a 4v4 because the solo laner's here. I think that Hercules can not only do that, but he translates it really well into that late game with good knockups, good pushback, it's good CC. The same reason you like seeing it in the duo lane. All of that is good control. And with Apollo on the other side, maybe makes it even better for it to be in the solo lane because he just mez out the stun or mezzer out the follow-up. So now you have a guaranteed setup for some of those late game fights. And Terra's another good pick who's been on the rise. So you get two really good supports, really good front lines here for the Scarabs with an impossibly good backline in the Tiamat. I mean, this is going to be something that I think is really going to be favorable for him. Plus, we get to watch Scream on Erlang, which makes things fun.
Yeah, it's good in my eyes here as well. The Leviathans, they're looking to keep this momentum swing going, keep the heat behind this team building up. Kind of final thoughts here, Gore, before we go into game. I think it was the Raijin that was 5-0 for this Leviathan squad. Do you think this has a good chance of becoming 6-0 after game 1?
Look, those top threes for the Leviathans make me want to... I'm not Mifflin. I won't actually bet on them, but if there were betting involved, that's where I would be leaning. They are a team that, at least with those top three, should theoretically be able to take control. They've got a good front line to control the Scarabs, and despite the Tiamat on the other side, I think they're still going to find some success.
The Atlantis Leviathans, it's the Solar Scarabs, and it's Zapman against his former team. Game number 1 starts right now.
Thank you, Dave and Gore. Aggro and J-Mac here on to the cast, or J-Mac with Aggro, and Doug, as per usual, for our good old man on the Spectator. And we've seen this before. We saw the Scream this morning via the SCC. Now, those were games obviously played previously, but we do know that he's got this in his wheelhouse.
He does. I mean, Scream's God pool. Gore used the word eclectic. I think that's probably a good one. He's always going to try something a little bit different, and he goes towards the Erlang Shen and will probably build pretty similarly to how we saw him build when he played that SEC game last week. Ikaval pretty early, stone cutting, very aggressive with the mannequins. But hey, it's not benevolence at the very least. We got that going for us, which is nice.
That's good. That is a very good point onto it. And there's a mannequin on the flip side for a Panatom as well.
That's right.
So that's at least 2 benevolence that we won't see in here. Can't say the same for the rest because there's still 4 players who haven't picked it up here. And this will be the final set of the of what we expect to be the final set of the benevolent shenanigans with the incoming nerfs that it's going to be receiving on Tuesday.
That's right. So this should be the last of it, but maybe they're going to be aggressive with these mannequins. Scream certainly, as he gets the beads from Panatom after blinking in, just hitting a simple pin.
Inbound, going to get stunned and going to get double sundered there by Rongyu, so he'll take the full brunt of that relic. And Hardcore not having a great time over here against Solo or Troll, despite SOT being under that tower. Hardcore is the one sitting well under half health.
And he has no beads either. It looks like Solar Troll put some threat on pushing him into the tower and ended up getting the beads out from him. So that's a good start. That's the thing about Hercules Solo, is even against a character like Cullen that you think will just dominate the lane, you can just put yourself in a position where if I hit a 2-1 in this exact spot, I'm just going to kill him. Or I'm going to get really close to killing him and they'll have to go back to base. Forces Yarkor to pick up the beads and he already uses them.
Chance of an invade here at the Harpy. Inbound and Stewart trying to grab this one away. Rongyu leaps in and is unsuccessful in holding onto that Harpy. So 1 steal on the board there for the Scarabs, but they're being slightly zoned out of the lane here by Zapban and Rongyu as they're holding the front line. Inbound, who's about half of his health coming back into the lane. The banner is dropped down as well as the walls, just to get a little bit of a stun onto Rongyu.
This is going to be a pretty passive lane for the most part, but Stewart and Zap, knowing how those two like to play at times, might see them get a little more aggressive.
Panatom going to get caught out of the invis. Scream immediately going to go in for the knockout. Panatom is just fighting for what left he can, but there's not much left in the tank for him. Scream picks up first blood.
Beautiful driving strike there from Solar Troll. He's the one who sets it up, but it's the well-timed aggression coming out of the Scarabs. I mean, it's Scream knowing that speed buff's up. I know that I've got a ton of CC. I know we kill him if I can land it. Let's just get some solo lane pressure here for Solar Troll. He times his wave well, and it ends up being a speed buff invade, a blue buff invade, and they still have their whole right side done. We'll go back to after this. Scream is going to be really far ahead of Panatom.
You can already see about a level separating the 2 junglers at the moment. Onto this Erlong Shen, those levels are very huge for him. We'll see where he likes to put his priority as far as the damage goes. There's always the pin, there's the transformations. You have a lot of options kind of depending on which way you go with that Erlong Shen.
Plenty. So he's got options on where he wants to go. I think he's going to go very damage oriented. That's Scream's play style. He can go, those hybrid builds. He's very comfortable on that sort of thing, but when we've seen him on Erlong in the past, it's been much more damage oriented. And when you get a lead like this, why wouldn't you? You should be trying to press it. You should be trying to build some damage and just try and one-tap people.
Shinto going to get stunned out by Baronic in the mid, forces a Thunder Crash out. Panatom on rotation, but Baronic is not deterred one bit. He'll fight right back into it and put Panatom now under half health and also under the tier 1 tower.
Smart by Baronic. He's leveraging his power spike. He backed already and finished off his Charon's coin, whereas Shinto has not backed and finished anything off or spent his gold. So Baronic is going to be able to force him back a little bit earlier than he wanted to. Looked like Shinto wanted to stick around and get an extra wave. Baronic's poke forces him to give that up, and that matters. But by Shinto being a little greedy, he gets to stay out, does not die, does not lose his beads, and gets benevolence alongside his Charon's coin. So not all bad, I would say, for the mid laner here for Leviathans.
A little bit later on the back there, and with the 2 camps that went the way of the Solar Scarabs earlier on, Panatom wasn't able to finish off that mace yet. He's still only sitting at a tier 2, where on the flip side for Scream, he's already finished that Iqbal off and already looking for aggression, not just in mid, but we did see the ward dropped earlier on into the dual lane Heartbeat camp, so looking to see where he's going to make his next mark and where he'll strike next.
Wouldn't be too surprised if it's over here with Solar Troll and really playing around how strong this Hercules is in this laning phase. I know it's Cucullin and he's got his transform and all that kind of stuff, but Herc just does so much damage. I think Scream and Solar Troll win this DPS race pretty easily.
Greater Scorpion's going to go the way of Solar Troll on the Scarabs. The Boulder not going to connect onto Panatom. He'll make it out. Hardcore down to about half health. Blinket from Scream gets the ult from Panatom, and he'll make it back to the safety of the tower.
Man, I mean, Solar Troll nearly soloed Panatom by himself. The Boulder misses, I don't know if it would have been enough, but it would have been awfully close in order to kill Panatom. So he should count himself pretty lucky that SOT went for breastplate 1 instead of just anything with a little bit of physical power on it, because that could have been the difference. But at the end of the day, I mean, the Scarabs still steal away the Scorpion. Good play from Solar Troll. Love the aggressive blink. And I think him on a pick like Hercules, I've talked about it a lot recently with Terra being meta, with Khepri being meta. These things a little bit more peel-oriented. These gods that want to sit in the back line a bit more, they need someone to start the fights, and Herc does that well.
Hardcore going to use the ultimate but not get the knock-up on the Solar Troll, and no further dive under the Tier 1 tower. He will be safe and sound under there. And thanks to the help of the minions, he'll just be able to keep getting a little bit of that extra farm up onto it. And Solar Troll, first off, stealing that Scorpion onto the right-hand side, but just this continued aggression he's been putting out is really leveraging this 1,000 gold lead that the Scarab's been able to build up.
Pretty impressive for just 6 minutes in, and look at where Scream is again. Right in the enemy jungle, finds Panatom.
Gets him with the pin, hits him with a knockup from the turtle as well, but Panatom is on the run. Movement speed not quite enough to close the gap. Scream unable to collapse and get that kill.
But it doesn't get the kill, but that's okay. He's forcing Panatom back to base. He's going to delay these back harpies, make sure that it's Rongyu and Shinto splitting them instead of Panatom getting that farm. I'm a little surprised that there hasn't been a secondary blue buff invade, that Ryarkor has gotten the last 2 blue buffs for himself. But Scream might be looking to extend his pressure elsewhere on the map instead. He's now over on this left-hand side, and there's not very many wards on this side of the map for the Leviathans. Only one by the lower side duo entrance. Scream might be able to find an angle to gank Zap.
Inbound might be able to find an angle here on the Shinto. Catches him at the red buff. Some shots over the wall from Baronic, do a bit of damage, but Ruination off the mark, not going to get the stun, and that sets up for the red buff invade for the Solar Scarabs, stealing yet another camp away for the Leviathans.
And meanwhile, on the right-hand side, Panatom was looking to take Solar Troll's blue buff, but seemed to be unable to do so with some help from Solar Troll's ultimate to secure that. So another win for the Scarabs. Hasn't amounted to much quite yet. You know, only 1 kill, just under 1,000 gold in the lead. But I've loved their aggressiveness. I like the way they're playing the map. They're not shying away. They're not playing scared. And that's something that Scream does very, very well. He will not back down from fights. He won't play scared against anyone. He's got plenty of confidence. And I think that bringing that to a team environment like the Scarabs that are going through a lot right now, you know, 2 roster changes, bench their solo laner, unbenched them in the same week because they had too many other things going on. That confidence and bringing it to the whole team, that's helpful. And I think that the type of mentality that Scream has can help in this period of time for the Solar Scarabs.
And just another level of veteran confidence coming out of him as well. Scream very well decorated into that jungle as an SPL player. Took a little bit of a break this time around, but now making his way back into it. Gone back for a second item, Wingblade. So he's going to get a little bit of extra movement speed, a little bit of extra action onto that, and some protections to boot with it. And he'll continue that aggression throughout the jungle, now looking up over towards red, or at least just to get a ward in that zone. See where those mid laners are, see where these supports are starting to roam around.
Inbound's ultimate is back up already after using it to secure the red buff. Blink, not up quite yet. He's going towards that Lotus Crown, which is such a good item for Terra. Just makes your already teamfight winning ultimate that much better. But anti-heal's already there for the Leviathans. Brawlers for Panatom, Divine for Shinto, all already done. I appreciate that they've been diligent in building their anti-heal.
Shinto immediately has to beads and Thunder Crash out. Solar Troll under fire into the solo lane. Nice double knockup, double ultimate into the solo lane. Will take down the solo laner. Can't say the same luxury for the Leviathans over in mid. They do end up losing that red buff again.
Still, I think that that's all intentional from the Leviathans. I think that Panatom has recognized that he can't win these fights or anytime Scream's around. That he's just not strong enough to take on Scream this early in the game. So instead of trying to match where Scream is, Panatom is intentionally moving elsewhere on the map. And he's starting to make things happen. Getting that kill on a Solar Troll is a good start.
Rongyu caught out in the middle of 3. Has to use the Draconic Transformation. He'll get stunned on the bottom end of it, but no further fights from the Scarabs onto that one. They get the ultimate out of support, and that's all the win that they need. Shinto also losing out on his beads in that last fight too, highlighted earlier on as he tried to defend that red buff, but the walls from inbound and just making sure that he's forced to keep that relic basically in check the entire time.
Speaking of, though, inbound blinked away in mid after Rongyu's transformation, thought that there might be a rotation coming from Panatom. I think Panatom threw out the decoy, and that spooked Bobby a little bit. So you end up trading Fafnir ultimate for Blink. That's not bad if you're Rongu. We kind of take those. That Draconic Corruption matters a lot, but stopping inbound from getting these big blinks in. I mean, you look at the triple blink from the Scarabs. I don't think inbound's going to be trying to peel quite as much as some other Terras that we've seen. I think that he's trying to get in there, blink in, hit the whole enemy team, and start the fights off that way. This looks like a more aggressive style of comp from the Scarabs.
And it feels like the Scarabs are really just trying to keep Shinto at bay over anything else. I mean, mentioned on the desk by Gore, he's 5-0 now on this Raijin, this portion of the phase. And that's a big number. It's a pretty stark number to go against. You know, you're losing out 5-0 onto here. You gotta really put your focus and really realize you have to shut that down. I mean, he has proven that he is a monster onto this god, and it really does feel like that's where the Scares are putting the focus, because Zapman's just free farmed over here in this left side.
It does not surprise me that Shinto has a very good Raijin record. That checks out for how well he's played on that pick throughout his career. 5-0. I'm not surprised that it's a perfect record, because I think that he's just so good on this god. The thing about Raijin is that there aren't a whole lot of weaknesses for the character. You know, he's really good early, he's good late, he's fine mid-game, he's safe, he kind of does it all.
Oracle Harpies were taken earlier, so the vision control for the Scarabs. Fury down to half. Rongu jumps in. Has Draconic Transformation if he needs it. He'll go into it very quickly. Scarabs gonna go. Fury, Zapman dunks in onto 4, taunted onto Rongu. Scream low in health and taken out by the Thunder Crash combo onto it. Stewart, however, manages to take down Panatom in the process. Solar Troll manages to squeak by, but inbound doesn't get that same luxury. He's picked up quickly by Shinto on the retreat.
Solar Troll will be able to limp away, but not easily. It's a 2-for-1 in favor of the Leviathans when it comes to the kills, but it's the Scarabs who ended up getting the Gold Fury. So pretty even after that skirmish. Again, only about 500 separating these two teams. And that dive from Zapman spooked me a little bit, seeing him dive into a Terra-ulted entire backline. But he did a really good job. Was nice and patient afterwards. Dashed out, used his mez appropriately, didn't even have to use the beads, and he knew that he wouldn't be the focus because he had the cavalry on the way. Shinto in particular putting up plenty in that last team fight.
I mean, you can see that harsh dip back down where the Golden Experience were starting to go in favor of Leviathans. The Scarabs immediately take that Fury, dip it back down, but then you see that slow climb back up after those 2 kills for it. So not entirely negating out the Gold Fury onto it, but definitely stemming the bleeding on it just a little bit. Now only 400 gold separate these two teams. And only a few kills onto the board. A lot of fighting, but so far not a whole lot of blood spilled.
Not quite yet, but still plenty of team fight presence, I think, from both of these teams. You're going to see both these teams scale pretty well into the later stages. And for me, this game is going to boil down to how well can Panatom find a target that is not near inbound, because that is going to be difficult for him to take down. If inbound's ultimate comes out, that shuts down a lot of what Loki's going to be able to do when it comes to burst. Versus, where is inbound using his ultimate? Is he blink ulting the entire enemy team and leaving his own team a little bit too exposed? Leviathans have good AoE in this draft. Loki not really thought of as a team fighter, but I think one of his strongest traits of his kit is that new the agonizing visions, the 2, and just spreading that poison and giving your teammates, or giving the enemy team, that reduction of damage in the middle of a team fight. That matters a lot. So when you factor in that AoE, the Raijin AoE, how good of team fighting Cullen is, and Fafnir, despite the Terra on the other side, which is undoubtedly very strong, and the Tiamat, I think both teams have a lot of tools to come to the later stages. So it doesn't surprise me that these teams are pacing it pretty slowly. They're both probably telling themselves, oh, we outscale them, don't worry about it.
I mean, you talk about the reduced damage that comes from the agonizing visions. I'm thinking of the more nightmarish one of the actual vision distortion that comes from that one. Not quite the same as a Shibalanke or a Raw Blind from the Ultim and the 2 respectively onto it, but still, putting all that muck on their screen, you can't see what's going on in front of you directly. It can cause quite a stir into those team fights, but I think one thing to kind of point out the drastic difference here, you got the triple initiation of triple blink on one side, triple sunder on the other. We'll see if it can help Rongyu out, as he's got to leap away. Dashing by inbound, gets the stun. Rongyu has his path cut off, and Shinto has to lose out on the beads. Ultimate by inbound, but it's used to retreat.
Zap's on the way. I think that's why the Scarabs start to back it up. A little confused by inbound's ultimate, though. I mean, if he's going to ult, you could ult then blink, but he didn't really have any buttons left after that. Scream and Solar Troll have their blinks, but they didn't seem super interested, so inbound just kind of wastes that really important cooldown without a whole lot of value out of it. But at the end of the day, Shinto did beads, even though that didn't have anything to do with the Earth and Fury, and that's a win in and of itself for the Solar Scarabs.
If anything, it is the one big one they got. And I guess Zapman's ultimate on top of that as well. So 1 beads and 1 global presence ultimate. They set up for the Pyromancer. Rongyu jumps in, goes into draconic form, but a little too late for the Pyromancer, but not too late to take down Scream with Panatom's ultimate. Baronic getting low, and the Taiko drums doing too much damage. Jarkor finishes 1 kill, and inbound gets body blocked and stuck against the wall. Double kill for the solo laner.
Man, awful fight for the Scarabs. They just take too much damage coming from the Pyromancer. If your ult's down for Terra, you've gotta tell your team that we can't be aggressive, because I'm not going to be nearly as useful as I should be. And the Leviathans just rout the Scarabs in that fight. It was not close, because the great damage from Shinto, Panatom on the right target, Scream was nearly dead before that fight even started. And now the ball feels like it might be out of the Scarabs' court. The Leviathans immediately group up, start making plays, head to the Gold Fury. And Stewart's backing, this gold is gone. This is where the Leviathans can start to turn up the jets and make a big difference.
Stewart trying to walk in, but he doesn't really have a great steal option, and it's going to be too little too late. Leviathan's able to pick up the Fury. Primal Fury does manage to go their way, and now we see that golden XP start to sway back towards the Leviathans, and this is common all the way back to their days of early Sanguine. They're fine giving up the early game. They're fine letting these teams play that early game, because once it comes to the late game, they just know in their minds, we've got the better fights.
Exactly, and the reality is that the Leviathans were really just lying in wait for the Scarabs to make a mistake around that side of the map. And they made the mistake of committing to the Pyromancer and not being able to DPS it well enough, taking too much damage, and then full committing to it. I think if Rongyu is ulting right in front of you, you know Scream's really low, the Pyromancer just isn't losing a lot of golden experience for it. And look, overall, it's not so bad. You're looking at about 1,000 gold difference, 18 minutes. That's not a problem at all. I would call this an even game. But you're starting to see an experience differential on that right-hand side, and that's where the problem really comes. And Solar Troll and Scream are both pretty far behind now.
Rongyu rotates back into the mid lane to team up with Shinto. Mostly just to clear the wave out. No real signs of going for any kind of major objective or fight here. Just kind of poke inbound out and send it back to base. Maybe force an ultimate out of him if possible, but inbound will be patient and hold on to that Earthen Fury. Stun onto Rongyu. He gets plucked back in by Solar Troll. The minion comes out just to slow down Rongyu. He's down to just under half health. We'll heal a little bit back with that course. Now Panatom in a little bit of danger, but he gets a nice sidestep and avoids the Earthbreaker.
Caught his beads, though, as well. So now you've got no beads for the Loki. Didn't have a chance to punish Shinto, but still not too bad, as Zap knows he's in trouble, immediately has to use the ultimate. Stewart's ult would have easily chased down that Apollo, so Zap trades his ultimate for a purple buff.
And probably just a worthwhile trade onto. You lose out on a buff versus your life onto it, so Zapman will make it out in time, be able to get back to the safety of his lane, and going for crit here. Hidden Dagger started up onto his build as well. Not seeing the bow build come out of Zapman. We do see it come out of Stewart, but Wind Demon first item of the crit at least picked up after that Executioner.
Very interesting. I mean, you think of Apollo as one of the better Silver Branch abusers, even though he doesn't have an attack speed stem that he can perfectly control. Comes out and it doubles his attack speed. You end up slamming for those 5 autos. Zap decides to go crit, which I do think is a bit underrated right now, especially if the Scarabs aren't going to be ready for it. And Solar Troll's already finished off his build. He's gone for a lot of pretty cheap options, and none of them are included there for spectral armor. So maybe he sells his fighter's mask for it. I think that I probably would if I were in Solar Troll's position, but if he does that, then he has very little dedicated magical defense. You get a tiny bit from Wingblade, you get a tiny bit from the Katakeya shield. Those are things that Shinto is not going to concern himself with. Shinto's going to be able to do plenty of damage to this Hercules.
Yeah, Shinto's got plenty of pen on line between his 20% from the Charons and then the flat pen that comes out of that Divine Ruin. So he's got an answer for either of them. And Solar Scarabs are the one to start up the Fire Giant and try and bait somebody forward, but it's going to be Rongyu who gets grabbed by Solar Troll, gets thrown into the middle of the pit. But Yarkor is now the one on the front taking a lot of damage here from Baronic. Down under half, another big pull from SOT, but he gets caught on the geometry, not going to get thrown back into the clutches of the Scarabs team. Instead, it'll be a slight retreat here for the Leviathans.
And this is where this Terra sustain can really start to factor for the Solar Scarabs, because they're, Rongyu has some individual sustain. That's about it on the other side. It is going to be hard to withstand a war of attrition up against the Scarabs.
Blink, taunt in by Scream, and Rongyu doesn't have a chance to react to it. The CC chain just too much. The Cyclone hits Shinto and forces the Taiko drums, but he doesn't get anything else on top of that. Solar Scarabs up with the first kill of the fight. Maybe looking for another, but Zapman and Shinto able to hold true.
Man, just love the aggressiveness from the Scarabs. And it, just like we were talking about earlier for Scream, no fear for this man, none whatsoever. He is willing to take any fight that you can give him, and he'll find his own if you don't.
Yarkor going to dive into the Fire Giant pit as it's been started up. Immediately, the Earth of Fury comes out of inbound, looking for any target they can. Yarkor very low, but so is Scream as he's going to get caught out and taken out by the solo laner. Panatom and Zapman able to team up and take a couple down of their own. And now it's SOT all left alone in the pit. Rooted out by Yarkor, chased down, and the Thunder Crash will take him out of commission. Baronic, full health, full mana, sitting all alone in the backline now. Yarkor will chase him out. He turns his sights towards Shinto, but he's not going to get the damage off.
And Baronic will limp away, but not without doing some extra on the way out. I don't know how the Leviathans won that fight so cleanly. I mean, it was a 5v4. Scarab still had almost every button up. I mean, they had no ult from the Erlong Shen, but that shouldn't matter that much. I feel like Stewart just got caught in a weird position in that fight. He didn't get out as much damage as I felt like he might have been able to. Zapman had a well-timed, inbound at a well-timed ultimate. I didn't see what happened to Baronic or Stewart's damage in that fight, but I know that they were much healthier than I thought they would be coming out for the Leviathans.
We've seen this song and dance before. Immediately into Draconic form, pops the AoE Coerce, and that's all she wrote for the Fire Giant. Leviathans off a big team fight, wiping 4. Regroup and reform to take out the Fire Giant for themselves. 10-3 now on the kill column. Just 23 minutes in. They're starting to get a little bit of a gold lead, about 3,000-4,000 in their favor.
And Panatom already has his Mannequin's Hidden Blade, which is really, really annoying to deal with on the other side. Not only is it a ton of extra burst damage, but if he just drops the 2 at max range and you dip your toe into it, you eat a Mannequin's Hidden Blade proc, you feel it. It hurts. It does a lot. And that is very difficult to deal with. And remember that Benevolence gets you extra gold, extra experience, all this kind of stuff. It's all very good. We're all on the same page there. But it does matter in games like this where, say, Baronic having a lot of gold in hand would normally be able to go back, upgrade a starter, and have a really big power spike. Is this power spike that he's about to get by finishing his 6th item going to be as strong as finishing off a Sacrificial Shroud? Sacrificial Shroud or something like that he would have been going if he hadn't gone Benevolence. Typhon's Fang without a whole lot of lifesteal outside the Soul Gem, probably not quite as strong as a Sacrificial Shroud.
We see a split of the Leviathans, 3-2 towards the left and mid lanes to drop down as many towers as possible. They'll at least get the 1 over in the duo lane, and they'll regroup on that side as a full strong 5 to start pushing towards the Phoenix. You see double ward popped up there by the Scarabs just to keep their eyes on Panatom more than anybody else. This stealthy Loki trying to make a wrap around. Scream will catch him and get a nice pin, but Rongyu over the wall will make sure that Scream does not aggress any further.
Worth noting that Yarkor did not go Animosity or sell it. That's usually what happens. These soul laners usually either sell it or go Animosity, but he's upgraded to an actual Compassion out of the Benevolence. So Yarkor not going to be able to tank as much for himself, but tank more for the overall team.
In Yarkor attempts to go. He gets stopped in place for just a little bit. Gets the ult only on the Solar Troll, but that's a huge portion of his health taken down. Solar Troll's going to be forced back to the fountain. Scream and Inbound go in. They double ult, but it's an immediate backup from the Leviathans. Now they walk back in. Inbound rooted in place and being bursted down by Shinto. Rongyu goes up into the Dragon. The Phoenix is gone. Panatom gets a double stun into the backline, and Scream is down. Jump in by Rongyu. Solar Troll falls down quickly to the might of the Leviathans, and now the 5-man retreat after they got their prize.
The difference in how this Terra has really worked for the Scarabs versus what we've seen from it elsewhere. And it's just, I think it's just this mentality of blinking in and getting these big ults instead of using it as a counter option, as a counter engage for when they jump in on you.
Pre-beads out of Stewart from the lead on Rongyu. He's going to de-transform on the wrong side of the map and get taken down by Baronic, and it's looking like for the Leviathans that might be the call not to fully commit to this Phoenix just yet. They're kind of harping back and forth on the Inbound low. The Raiju doing a little too much damage for him. Yarkor gets knocked up and luckily avoids the ruination, but the Phoenix still falls.
It's 2 Phoenixes down now for the Leviathans. Only 1 left to go, and they're looking prime to keep this this Raijin win streak going here for Shinto. Just overall, I think that they got a lot of momentum off of that Pyromancer play. The Scarabs have been struggling to find their ways in ever since. This build for Scream still coming a little bit late, I'd say, into the game to not be able to finish it off, and he needs something like an upgraded mannequins, and he needs the chin size he's working toward. That's a lot of gold that he's on the hook for right now, and he only has about 1,000 in hand. I don't know if he's going to be able to finish both by the time that the Scarabs are looking to defend their Titan.
And this build by Zapman finishes out by selling out his starter item and going for a Shadow Steel Shuriken, an item we do not see very often amongst that star tree, giving him a little bit of extra anti-heal to continue dealing with Inbound, Solar Troll, and Scream, and pretty much anybody else who's got any kind of healing built up into their kit for it, even dealing with some of that lifesteal that Baronic has built just amongst his items.
It's very smart build from Zap to go for the Shadow Steel. I think that's very intelligent up against how much healing he's up against. Plus, he wants more crit. Does both at the exact same time, so that's very smart. Taking a look at Stu's build, he doesn't have any lifesteal in this build whatsoever. So my man is taking the damage and he's holding it throughout these team fights, and that is usually not the ADC way. A lot of times you want to be able to stand in box a little bit better and heal up through the damage that is coming your way. We'll see if he can do enough just outright damage with the animosity in order to make it actually count. I have not been a fan in some limited testing of finishing animosity for ADCs. I don't think it's felt as good as another regular 6th item would.
Jeez.
But maybe Stu can make it.
Well, while he may not be able to kill structures very quickly with the crit build onto it, Zapman certainly does quick work to the objectives. That Fire Giant down in about 5 seconds or so. Quickly for the Leviathans. Now they can regroup onto this right-hand side. They'll push Hardcore over just to the mid lane and kind of force their attention elsewhere. Left side has been pushed all the way back to the tower, so they don't have to worry about defending there, but Rongyu may have to worry about defending his life. He gets pushed into the Phoenix and up into the Dragon. He'll go, catches Inbound with some damage on, but he'll leap himself right back out to the team. Inbound still well and not very healthy in the back end. Boulder comes through, hits 3, Phoenix down. Scream now, no ultimate available for him as well. Solar Troll has to leap away, but Shinto goes up into the Taiko drums and will nearly take down Solar Troll with the Raiju Percussive Storm, though. That'll be enough to take down the solo laner.
And the Titan's already at half HP from all these fire minions that were coming in mid. Leviathans just looking to play it nice and slow and ensure the game 1 victory.
Waiting for those minions to come through. Rongyu misses the leap and gets the stun afterwards. Scream takes a nice little bit of damage. Up in the air is Zapman crashing down onto Stewart, looking for the solo matchup, and with no lifesteal, there's no chance he gets out of that one. Zapman gets 1, and huge crits are coming through. Scream didn't stand a chance, and neither does Baronic. He'll fall down to the might of Zapman. Triple kill for the Hunter. Give him a 4th one with Inbound. Sure to fall shortly after. 4 on the board for Zapman, and the first game on the board for the Leviathans.
How's he going to do his old boys like that, J-Mac? My man says, hey guys, good luck. By the way, I'm going to quadra-kill you next time we play and make it look pretty easy for him. Impressive stuff from the Leviathans across the board. I think that, like I said, I really liked the aggressiveness coming from the Scarabs early. I thought that they had the right idea, being aggressive on these blues, being aggressive on Panatom's jungle. They got Panatom behind, and then the invades stopped. And then Scream just fell further and further behind. Ended up, I think, bottom of the player damage charts overall. Expected more with how well that game started off.
I mean, with like you said, with just how well it all started going, just as quickly fell apart as soon as they lost their first fight. And with that, we will take it to a quick break. When we come back, the desk will break down game one.
All right, guys. Just give me a second. Gotta recenter myself. Curses! Oh. Curses! Curses! My name's Mifflin. My name's Mifflin. My name's Mifflin. Lane, laugh, love. Jordan, I need you to fucking change your face. Jordan, focus! Yeah, I can do that. Think I can't do that? Curses! All of our competitive players can be nearly as stoic, though. What the f, Jordan? Focus! You gotta keep me in there. I've gathered the women like talismans. Both of you guys are watching that last clip alone or with headphones on. Rapid fire Migny. I literally speak for a living.
Well, the Atlantis Leviathans fall behind a little early there, but end up turning things around, grab themselves a convincing win over the Solar Scarabs in game number 1. So hats off to the Atlantis Leviathans. We want to give due shout out to our title sponsor here in Season 8 of the SPL. It's Alienware. Make sure you go to smitegame.com/AW, or no, not AW, Alienware, I'll just redo the whole thing to make sure I get it out right. Smitegame.com/Alienware. Using code SMITEAW, you can get your hands on some sweet Alienware gear. And then make sure to follow them on Twitter and Instagram at Alienware. And then AlienwareArena.com for some sweet giveaways, contests, and a growing, and probably glowing, global community. Goodness. Gormizer is with me to dig me out of this hole.
It's glowing like the radiant Alienware raw skin.
We saw it earlier today.
Yeah, we did.
And an Alien wore this. And now look at us, Gordon.
An Alienware raw played on an Alienware monitor with an Alienware PC.
And they won.
And they won.
And you want to know why?
Because the
Alienware. Across the board. The more AWs you
top
got,
to bottom.
that thing's got a lot of cores in it.
Yeah, look, you know what? Throw in A&W root beer. Not a sponsor, but if you want to be.
That's a good thought there, Gore. Jithans probably has some on hand. Let's break down what happened here in game 1. The Atlantis Leviathans. There's something about the Solar Scarabs and getting first blood.
Yeah.
And then not being able to convert that into the big mid-game, late-game type leads. This was a game where Scream got an early kill. And things never really rolled. It always felt, and it always sometimes feels with the Leviathans, it's just a matter of time before they turn things around.
And in this one, the time wasn't too long. Although even here, you look at it at a glance, it's pretty even. I mean, the Scarabs had got themselves off to a good lead. They weren't too far behind in terms of kills or gold right here. And so a lot of what was going on breaks at this 16-minute point when this fight finally comes through for the Leviathans. So that is maybe the biggest thrashing point where they started to fall behind, but it's the next one. And unfortunately, kind of on cue, each time a huge team fight broke out, much like you highlighted, that was when things really started to fall apart. You get the Leviathans winning a few of these. All of a sudden, we jump 4 minutes ahead of where we just were, and you're up 6,000 gold, right? I mean, it just feels like it comes out of nowhere. That jumps to well over 10,000 gold not too long afterward. Zapman gets a quadra kill at the very end. It's one of those things that the Scarabs, for a very good chunk of time in this game, kept it even, and then the Leviathans decided no more.
Yeah, Zapman, gets 5 kills. 4 of them come at the end of the game there. Shinto on the Raijin continues the hot streak. It was 5-0 for the Leviathans going into this game. It is now 6-0 for the Atlantis Leviathans, and this game is a good reason why. Stuart put up big damage numbers, second highest in the game. 29,000 is always going to be hard to match when Shinto's doing that, but 22,000 for Stuart at least shows that there's still some comfort, or there is some comfort for the Solar Scarabs Hunter. Hopefully we'll build that up. And so now for the Solar Scarabs, it's a lot about finding those early kills and turning it into something. Gore and I earlier on got a look at the backs of our heads. It's so interesting. It's something you never really see unless you're at the you're patting the back of your head. Unless you're at the barber shop and they ask you, like, do you like the back of your head, and they hold up the little mirror. That's the last time I looked at it.
When was the last time you went and got a haircut?
Oh man,
because for me it's been well over a year.
I'm a few months in between.
I've been just cutting my hair.
These are all fantastic, by the way.
I like this one.
This one's very good.
This
Quick and to the point. Oh, that's literally what the tweet says. This one's me. My horrible Photoshop effort doesn't look as great when it's
blown up like this. Bera is a very beautiful woman, though.
What a sentence to be able to sit here and
both inside and in this picture.
Right, there you go.
Barry, you can be who you want to be. BARBIE, Barbie girl.
I appreciate that, Gore. That went totally over my head, but I'm sure it.
Oh really?
Sure.
Oh no! I just aged like 4 years from that. Or wait, did you?
I'm 26.
Do you have an older
I have a younger
or
sister.
young? Okay, you have a younger sister. For me, it's probably my older sister. Then that's probably where that comes into the equation.
Yeah.
That I would hear that jingle.
Yeah, that one soared immediately over my head, but I'm sure someone out there that's not me.
Katie, if you're watching, you appreciated it. We and her say that to each other all the time.
There you go. Well, look, picks and bans for game 2 starting off. If you want more of those memes, at Smite Pro on Twitter posted it, and then there's a whole bunch of replies beneath it and some quote tweets and stuff on that. So go follow that account and look at that Twitter thread if you want some more funny Dave and Gore memes.
And if you just ever tweet funny stuff at us, that's a good way to get on broadcast. We like looking at funny things.
Correct. Funny things are good, and funny things often end up on broadcast. With that being said, I don't know how I'm here at least. You're pretty funny, Gore. I don't know how I'm here. I'm not very funny, but they put me on broadcast anyway. Look, the Leviathans continue this trend, though. of not wanting the Artemis. They're going to ban out the Artemis first and foremost overall, and I guess if Zapman's going to play the Apollo, and if I'm not mistaken, it was a 0% win rate Apollo going into that game.
Well, because the only person who's touched it is Johnny, right? Like, up to this point, he's played it in the jungle.
Has he?
Yeah.
Like we've seen it like twice, maybe way early in Season 8.
3 times he's been picked for the Valkyries. They've lost all 3 games.
There you go.
Once
Gore, you are.
he has been picked up for the Warriors. Lost that game.
And then
Twice he's been picked up for the Titans. No, banned by the Titans.
banned.
Sorry.
I think it's just the 4 games.
Banned by the Kings. And that seems to be about it.
Yeah, got it. So 4 games played, 4
4
games
losses
lost
until now.
before that game. So Zapman, and he gets a quad on it. Feeling good. I love this new look at Zapman. Feels refreshed in the way that he's playing that lane. Still doesn't want to play the Artemis though here in game number 2. Giannis is going to get a ban as well as the Odin and the Emoja. So different mindsets here, Gore, where carries are the scary thing for the Leviathans to deal with, whereas on the other side it's all about initiation, frontline, lockdown in the back of the Solar Scarabs mind.
And let me tell you, when you're looking at the Scarabs, or I'm sorry, the Leviathans, so the Scarabs here are the ones taking the look. Here's the most banned god against the Leviathans. Yamoja.
Yep.
Makes sense. Wrong use Yamoja's disgusting. Don't let him have it. The second most banned god against the Leviathans. Oh, it's that Raijin. Makes sense. Shinto's Raijin is disgusting. They get one of those. They're not getting, so far, haven't gotten the other. Tiamat is that third one, but of course, Tiamat makes the most sense. But this is a unique position. The Valkyries and right now the Scarabs are the only 2 teams people are willing to do this to as often as they have, which is the Leviathans don't care about first picking the Tiamat because they know even if you have this on the Scarabs, as has been illustrated by 3 games this week, it's not your win condition. It's not going to be the end-all, be-all. But the downside is, if you're the Scarabs here, you can't not pick it. If you go for this, I mean, maybe you grab the Morgan Le Fay in place of it. But if you don't grab Tiamat here, then Shinto just gets Tiamat. It's a lose-lose scenario, it feels like.
Yeah, so Tiamat is still around. Gilgamesh, though, has been a popular first pick amongst all the teams across the league here. Some flexibility. Feel like, I don't know, gone are the days maybe of Gilgamesh being played in solo. I say that completely unfounded. I'm just trying to remember the last time I've seen Gilgamesh, and it just feels like it's been jungle.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
The overwhelming majority of the time.
Even still, it's like a 95-5 split at best.
Right, it certainly feels that way. So that being the case, my assumption is that this is Panatom's pick here for game 2. It's the Terra run back for inbound here. There were some moments where the Terra found some value for the Solar Scarabs there in Game 1, Gore, and a strong enough pick to warrant another pickup here for the Solar Scarabs. And I think this is the right move. If you're not going to ban out Raijin, you got to pick it away and prevent Shinto from getting the run back, because teams have just not figured out how to beat Shinto on this pick.
And it's, I mean, like you said, fair enough. I think Baranik's going to look good on this one. I think Raijin's a great mid laner. I think it's that conversation we were having. Aggro had mentioned that like the gap between the second best Hunter and Artemis is larger than the gap between like your Tiamats, your Morgan Le Fays, and your Morgan Le Fays, and I think at this point maybe your Raijins, whoever you really want to slot in as that number 3 mage. And this Raijin has looked absolutely insane for the Leviathans. You don't get to the point where you're 6-0 on a pick like that unless you're worried about it. But I am, again, a little curious about the Scarabs' mindset. I actually like the fact that they don't go for the Tiamat, because I think that, you know what, you've locked her in 3 games this week, you've lost 3 games with her, you just leave her to the wayside. I'm surprised the Leviathans jump over her for the Morgan, but I think this feels more like a Shinto pick than Tiamat does, so I actually like it doubly for the Leviathans here, and it does create some problems in my mind. The Fafnir, hey, it's been treating Wrong You really well. Gilgamesh, good for Panatom, as you had highlighted. Morgan Le Fay feels like it should slot in well for Shinto. Mm-hmm. And I think the only time, I can't remember if they played it or played against it, were they the dive comp that beat the Morgan in the first game, or they were the ones that played it? I think the Kings played it and the Leviathans punished it. So theoretically, that means that they know how to protect this one and make Shinto feel even safer.
Yeah, Shinto, I think you give the benefit of the doubt to, right, with the way Shinto's been playing this year and throughout his career. Raijin, the 3rd most played god for Baranik, but haven't seen it. We haven't seen it in the last 6 games at least. It's been a whole lot of Tiamat here for the Solar Scarabs, as Gore pointed out earlier. Second wave of bans rolling through. Cerberus is going to take a seat alongside the Guan Yu. So still, Gore, frontline, initiation, We got to get it off the table because still a support pick, or excuse me, a solo lane pick to be had for the Leviathans.
And honestly, Cucullin got taken away, so you stripped
Cucullin
one
had
thing away, but
a
King Arthur...
79% win rate. That's wild.
And you know what? A lot of that 79 is going to be on hardcore.
Do you know? Did you already? You might have already told me what his how many games they've played on the Cucullin on our last desk.
Yo,
when we
I
talked
got you
about it.
though. At least up to this week, they had played 3 and they've won 2 out of 3. But then this week they've played it every game until now, I think. So, so giving them a couple more wins. No, they didn't play them every single game. They ended up having it not there when they played against the Valkyries, but they were against the Valkyries. I don't think they were too worried.
The Solar Scarabs are kind of counter-picking not counter-picking. They're
Ooh.
picking what the Leviathans want to play. The Raj and the Cucullin look great for Yarkor and Shinto, and so the Solar Scarabs end up just picking those away for themselves. Heimdall as well. You could maybe make the same argument for Zapman, that Stuart looks good on Heimdall, but so does Zapman, so we're going to take the Heimdall away. And the Solar Scarabs, as such, get a pretty good draft put together. But Gore, you were excited there, and I think it was around the time the Bologna locked in that you showed some excitement over there.
Again, I said this earlier. I just like Bologna a lot. That's a personal thing. I've loved her since she released. It's been one of my favorite gods to play. But I'm also excited because, like I said, we've gotten to see hardcore on Cucullin, and kind of that's it.
Yep.
He hasn't played. Like, he's been shifted around and played some of these other picks, but I want to see what else he has to offer and what else he's able to bring. And I think this Bologna is going to be a fun one to watch, and I think that it should be an interesting lane against the Cucullin as well. We'll get to see what Sok can do on the pick that was just a very dominant performer in the last game, and we'll get to see this Bologna again in the hands of someone like Hardcore, which just makes things exciting.
Yeah, it's been Cucullin, Cerberus, Cucullin, King Arthur, Osiris, and then Cucullin in the last 6 games. That's reason to furthest away for Yarkor there. So something a little bit different now for the Leviathans. Dive and jumping in seems to be the name of the game here, Gore, for the Leviathans. So this Raj and this Heimdall are going to have to play safe.
What I'm excited for, though, like the Scarabs, this is gonna. It's not intended to sound like an insult if it does. But
you
the
have
Scarabs,
said, I don't want to be mean like 7 times.
Because I'm not trying to be mean. I just want to say my thing, man.
Go ahead, say your thing.
And that is that the Scarabs here have done a really great job of making a Leviathans draft. Like, if you copy and pasted that onto the other side,
nice.
I just don't want to take it away from them.
Sure.
I think they did a good job. It just feels like a draft the Leviathans are going to run, which is a good thing because the Leviathans are a great team.
Right.
And this is a great pickup for them because if you can play it right, I could swear we've probably seen this or some variation of this played this year. The Terra should do really well, like you said, had some good moments for inbound. I like the Cucullin. Heimdall has been a good pick for the Scarabs when it was Zap. I think it's going to continue being a good pick because it's safe for Stuart. But Fenrir, Cucullin are going to have a lot of pressure on them to perform. Scream is going to get to show off a little bit. The Raijin damage, we just saw what it can do. The Scarabs have a very cohesive and great draft here. I'm excited to see if they can make it work.
Solar Scarabs, they take a page out of the Atlantis Leviathans book here for game number 2. J-Mac and Aggro will bring us the call.
Thank you much on the desk. Jumping right back into game number 2 here for Leviathans and the Scarabs. As mentioned, J-Mac and Aggro, joined by Doug once again to continue bringing us all your hot action here on the Battleground of the Gods. And inbound going back onto this Terra, it looked really good to start the first game out, and then it just felt like after the Pyromancer mishap, it just felt like he kind of lost the confidence in the god.
It was confidence not just for inbound, but I think the rest of the Scarabs lost some confidence as well. So I'm going to be looking for them to maintain that pressure, maintain that momentum that we saw from them a little bit earlier in the game, and not lose, take your foot off the gas just because things don't go your way for one fight. They were still very close in that game after that play. Just never felt like they were mentally.
We won't be seeing all 10 Benevolence for our potentially last game here. There is still a chance for one more, but there is an Eye of the Jungle picked up there by Scream, so that'll at least keep one of those little Benevolences off the board for us, or Benevoli, Benevioli, whichever fun route you decide to go with the plural form of Benevolence.
I agree with Biggie, man. He's been tweeting about how the GPM King is back in the SPL. That's Scream, of course, for anyone who's new. And everyone's so scared of him that they're just worried about their GPM only. They don't care about their early stats. It's just all about the gold per minute. Pretty cowardly, if you ask me. And I'm sure Scream will be back on his rightful throne next week whenever Benevolence is no longer dominating the map.
Inbound, gonna get stunned and hit with the Sunder there. Second one does miss, and with that, the disengage for the Leviathans. I think BMT also brought up a good point onto it, is look at all these silly people building 5 Benevolence. You're not gonna get that kind of gold spooling with all 5. You gotta need at least one person not to have it.
Yeah, one person, and that one person is usually the poor jungler who doesn't get to have any gold income for the game. But, yeah, someone's got to do it, and I suppose it's going to be Scream in this one, but he's got a great angle here into the duo lane.
He's going to try and make a play here onto Zapman and Rongyu, waiting for the opportunity. He does get the stun on the Zapman. Wall claps down as well. Beads come through, but Scream gets stunned by the EI Jutsu through the Brutalize, and that will stop the engagement in its tracks.
Yeah, it's a weird interaction, but you actually have to position yourself behind the Hachimon so that he can't dash through you with the first part. Because for EI Jutsu to stun, it's got the small line and the circle. Both the line and the circle have to damage you in order to stun you. So if you angle yourself behind where he's going to dash to, you can actually follow the EI Jutsu without getting stunned, but in that position you will get stunned. You can also pre-beads if you think he's going to do it, but then if you pre-beads and you don't kill him, then you're feeling pretty silly. So ends up just getting beads from Zapman, which is a worthwhile investment from Scream. Not too much of an issue.
You can never feel bad as the jungler just stripping a pair of beads away, especially one like a Fenrir, taking it away from the carry.
Yep.
Banner comes down from Stewart, looking for some further aggression into the dual lane, and Red Buff managed to get stolen away by Scream. He hasn't shied away from this side of the map, recognizing those beads are down, still keeping up the pressure over here.
No doubt. Gets red, gets purple. Solo Patrol gets his own blue. Speed buff's not going to get invaded. His speed's not even that far behind because Panatom just dropped his as he was clearing out back harpies and the like. So he's not even, he's 7 seconds behind on a speed buff timer. That's really not too bad. It's not gonna look good for his golden experience right off the bat, but it's worth it to set up Stewart and inbound to have a better lane and to keep Shinto a little bit behind Veronic, even if it's just by a small margin. Love Scream's activity on the map so far, just like I did in Game 1.
Very curious seeing that Shinto also overwent the Tiamat in the banning phase. It comes through and they basically gave him the ultimatum is, do you want Tiamat or do you want Morgan Le Fay? Solar Scarabs say, we don't want either of them. We just know we don't want Shinto on Raijin. So they take the Raijin away, give that over to Veronic in the mid lane, and Leviathans say, okay, well, we didn't want the Tiamat anyway. So they end up picking the Morgan Le Fay over her.
It's interesting. I don't hate the decision from the Scarabs, number one. As Gore said, they picked Tiamat a lot recently, have not found success with it. At some point, you've got to make a change. Veronic definitely has Raijin in the God pool. I'm surprised that it's Morgan Le Fay over the Tiamat for Shinto. And this is something that, just like the Kings consistently banning Artemis in the first pick position, those sorts of things, if I'm another team, if I'm a member of the Kings or the Jade Dragons or anyone else, I'm noticing that, hey, it seems like he wants Morgan Le Fay over Tiamat, at least whenever we've got these conditions. He's up against Raijin. We know that he might like Morgan Le Fay a little bit more. Even the games where it looks like the set might not be close, the other SPL players are paying attention. They're paying attention to those picks and bans. The coaches are certainly doing their homework. And things like that can actually have important effects at big events. Playoffs not too far away now, it seems. And you might be able to use that info even then.
Scream low in mana will manage to pick up Panatom with the Ragnarok. He's going to get a nice drop kick in response for Panatom, and that'll be the end of the engagement. Scream does manage through all of that, though, to get the purification beads from the other jungler.
They traded, though, because Panatom had a very good drop kick on the other end. So beads for beads certainly favors the Fenrir because his ultimate is a guaranteed death, whereas Gilgamesh is not. Still probably feel like Panatom says, hey, at least I got his beads, not too bad. Maybe we can make a play based on that.
Zapman continuing to play a little bit passive here into the duo lane now that he's finally gotten a break from Scream. Scream now going to the other side of the map temporarily, so it's got to feel good for Zapman that he finally gets a nice breath of fresh air, relief of, well, finally the jungler has left my lane alone.
Yeah, it's like he turned off his stream for a little bit. He doesn't have to worry about everyone camping his lane. But if I'm Scream, guess where I'm going? I'm going duo, baby. I mean, that's the pick that I mess with the most, although Morgan Le Fay also has some trouble getting Fenrir off of her. That Dragonflight doesn't do anything against Brutalize. He's knock-up immune during it. It is worth noting that Wildfire will do a ton of damage to the Fenrir because it procs on you using your next movement ability, and it's Brutalize does count, I believe, even if you hit him in the middle of it. So you do get to trade pretty heavily, and you have your Fear as well, so it's not like you're completely without options, but if Scream just waits around for Shinto to use that Sigil Mastery on the wave, then he might be able to strike at the right time.
We see Inbound foregoing the Gauntlet of Thieves as a first item. He rushed it last time around, which is typically where most supports go. Instead, he's done a Lotus Crown rush to get those extra protections from his heals online just a little bit sooner. Maybe that kind of alludes to him wanting to be a little bit more aggressive over in these matchups.
Could be. I mean, like you said, he rushed Thieves last time, then went into Lotus. This time goes Lotus first. Does set him behind when it comes to the pacing of the Thieves stacking, because Rongyu's already on it, but maybe it means that Inbound does want to be a little bit more aggressive around these buff invades. The Scarabs were doing a better job of invading buffs last game. They were on some red buffs at this point in the game that the Leviathans had trouble answering, but remember Panatom was going to the right-hand side and punishing Solo Retrol for the pressure that was being expended on the left. Wonder if Solo Retrol and the Scarabs were like, hey, maybe we don't want to let Solo fall super far behind, so we'll lay off the gas a little bit on the duo invades, but that's led them to doing not a whole lot of invading at all.
It's been a very quiet game since those first couple of buff steals, that red and purple off of Scream's no kill over into the dual lane, but then capitalizes off it, strips a couple away, but that's been all that Scream's really done. He's got a set of beads, but then traded his own beads for it, so not seeing a whole lot of targeted aggression anywhere else so far from the Scarabs, so let's have to see where they decide to make their mark going forward. Looking across the board as far as the relics go, with the Fenrir in tow, Deuce responsive, 4 sets of beads out of it. The only one not picking up those beads will be Ronggyu in that support role, though he's got quite a bit of mobility to get back when he does inevitably fall out of the map.
Very easy for him to get back. You can also buy a lot of time by going into your Draconic Corruption. If you really want to mess with the Fenrir, you can transform, then instant detransform, because you're CC immune whenever you're detransforming. Even though you don't glow gold, you can't be moved. So that is a weird interaction that I've seen happen. Definitely not to me. I definitely did not get totally owned by a Fafnir who did that to me, and I definitely did not embarrass myself.
That was a good fight.
Don't worry about it.
It never happened. It absolutely never happened. Yarkor is not getting baited under this tower. Solar Troll is the one who has to dash away. The disarm from the Scourge comes through. Solar Troll is stuck with the minions on the backside of the tower, and in comes Panatom looking for a quick early gank. He's going to be met instantly with Solar Troll. No leap available for the solo laner. He's going to fall down. As a matter of who gets it, Yarkor gonna be the one to grab it with the Scourge.
I mean, I like the idea from Solar Troll. He winds up his auto attack sequence. He gets the big hit on his auto, but doesn't end up being even close to killing Yarkor. He's got to know that Yarkor has ult, and if Yarkor has ult, he's never getting hit by the Fist Slam, and if he's not getting hit by the Fist Slam, then he's not dying. And I'm probably dead for doing that, so I don't know.
Well, maybe Yarkor is dead here. A nice return kill for Scream to put another one on the board, this time for the Scarabs, getting their jungler's first kill, so nice response, recognizing now his Eagles rallies down. Hasn't gone back to base really since that prior engagement, so maybe we got some gank options here.
You know, I don't often like think about which skin players are using, but maybe this Fenrir skin is underrated. It was so ubiquitous for a while because it was like the jump animation's so good. But maybe it's the best, and Scream's making it look good so far.
We're going to go for another attempt of a gank here, this time onto Panatom, who was trying to hold the lane, and that'll be a nice and quick one. But I agree with you that no matter how many good skins Fenrir has come out with, this one really seems to still kind of loop to be my favorite. For me, it's not even just the skin and jump animation, it's the fact that he says jump when you do his regular basic jumps.
Yeah, no, you're definitely not getting much better than that. Maybe I've been underestimating it. I thought it was overrated for a bit, but I might be changing my mind here live on the broadcast. Fenrir just has a lot of good skins. Sometimes I'm a big fan of just rocking the recolor on a lot of gods.
It's a good
Fenrir's
one.
definitely one of them. The Fenrir recolor is clean.
Yeah, Frostfang is a really good recolor skin. I think kind of simultaneously with the Fenrir, this is kind of the universal Raijin skin. We always do kind of see the Gorilla Raijin onto it, and for all right, you're throwing bananas at people. It's a great gag with it.
Yeah, it's definitely the best Raijin skin. because he's more upright in his ultimate. You get to like see more in this ultimate in comparison to the other ones. I'm not saying it's pay to win, but it does. I think it's more aesthetically pleasing to me, and that's why I'm using it all the time.
Especially when you're throwing the bananas right down at them in that ultimate, or the barrels at them, and Scream, he's going to pick up your core, who's going to be forced to use the beads and not be able to make that one out of there. Scream picks up his 3rd kill of the game, and maybe still looking for more, but it's Panatom's ult that holds through. Dropkick takes SOT a little too far and doesn't get the stun on the back end, and because of it, Scream capitalizes and takes down Panatom.
Man, so I can't believe Solo lived through that, man. So much extra HP and protection coming from that mystical mail, and it's what makes the difference. And all of a sudden, Scream's 4-0. I mean, he was nowhere to be found after those first few buff invades, and now look at him.
Immediately throws the Dragonflight out and forces the ult out of Veronic, but Shinto just has a little too much damage for him. Scream going to dive onto Shinto, and the wall will be enough to help team up to take him down. Puts 5 on the board now for him.
All 5 kills for the Solar Scarabs on their brand new jungler for Scream, and Veronic trades his life for the 1-for-1, and you see where Morgan Le Fay is at her best in those close range. We're just trading DPS number situations. She is hard to beat in that type of situation, but you still get the 1-for-1. You get her Aegis, whereas Veronic keeps both of his relics, and you keep Scream on this roll. He's up 3 levels now over Panatom, and this is where the same thing that happened last game cannot happen. You can go for objectives, you can try and play around it, and if it doesn't work out, that's fine. But you've got so much of a lead now if you're Scream that he has to try and keep the pace high. Cannot afford to just wait around for the Leviathans as a whole to group up and team fight, because overall the strengths are pretty even. You know, it's not a massive lead here for the Scarabs despite the 5-2 scoreline and how well their jungler is doing. It's pretty even in kills and the like. Gotta make them pay.
Scream looking for Shinto, will manage to pick him up. He gets the beads out instantly. Brutalize comes through, and one more little basic after will be enough to take him down. 2nd death on the board for Shinto. But one thing I kind of want to point out onto here, you know, we talked about inbounds build earlier with the Thieves, instead doing the Lotus Crown Rush. He's forgone the Thieves entirely so far, going for a Witchblade 2nd item.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about Witchblade in general. I don't hate not going Thieves in a game like this, that you want to try and keep the pace high. But I don't know if Witchblade, I mean, it's good against the Bologna. It feels good there. Nice stun. Makes so that Scream can easily secure. Well played there by Inbound and the rest of the Scarabs. I'm just a little, you know, you look at where Scream is heading in the build. Tank. Goes Void Shield, goes Pridwin, goes Thorns as his 2nd relic. I'm a little concerned that the Scarabs' DPS might drop off and that they might be relying a little too heavily on Stewart and Veronic to step up and do too much of the damage for them. But if they can do the damage and Scream can still leverage this lead that he has, this is where defense, to his credit, is very good, is that his base damage is going to carry him through the mid game now because he's so much further ahead than Panatom. And now he's just tanky in addition to doing a lot of base damage. So he would have one-shot people. Now he probably needs some help in order to kill someone like Shinto. But there's no chance he's going to be under a whole lot of threat. That's the trade-off.
On to the Gold Fury, the Scarabs go. Panatom will be the first to walk forward, as well as Wrong U, but they're being pushed back by Inbound alone on the backside of it. SOT walks forward just as a moral support for it, but that's going to be a quick Fury going the way of the Scarabs. No contest coming out of the Leviathans for it.
And this is the good, clean smite from the Scarabs. We win a fight on the right-hand side. We then look mid immediately. We kill mid. We get his beads. Now he's not going to step up. He's not going to contest us on this Gold Fury. We go to Gold Fury. We get that. We reset. We don't try and take a fight afterwards. Let's just play it nice and smart, especially when you're close to some big item purchases. And that's what the Solar Scarabs just got. The Soul Reaver done for Veronic, and I believe it was a Genji's Guard done for Inbound. Or no, Shogun's, sorry, excuse me, done for Inbound. So now we hit our power spikes. What's next? And that's where these teams that aren't as experienced at pushing leads, they sometimes take too long to answer the what's next? What are we doing next? You know, they spread out and they go, okay, now what can we do after we're spread out and farming? Where instead it should be, okay, we did gold, we're backing, what are we doing next? And you're talking about it coming out of base, you're moving as a unit, and you're not letting the pace drop from the game. You're keeping the questions flowing to the Leviathans. And it looks like they are going to set up a grouping. Stewart backs, heads right towards mid. leaving that dual lane entirely. I like this from the Scarabs. I don't know if I like a Fire Giant pull necessarily. I would have preferred a tier 1 tower push in mid. But hey, you know, you gotta spend money to make money.
Well, Scream's gonna jump in and grab Rongyu and pull him into the clutches of 5, gets the transformation out of him, and as soon as he lands down, Baronic and Stewart put him right back to the fountain. Yarkor now stuck in the midst of them. Thunder Crash comes out, Yarkor low.
Up, down!
With the Eagles rally and immediately back into the grave. One up into the sky from the realm. Panatom crashes back down looking for one. Does manage to pick up Scream in the process of it. Panatom will fall as well. Baronic finally getting the credit for one.
It's only Shinto and Zapman left. No beads now for Zap. He gets rooted by inbound, but look at how spread out Shinto and Zap are. Hard to peel for one another.
Shinto's gonna have to use the beads. Thunder Crash in, gets the Dragon Flight from one, and that's the call for SOT and Stewart to walk in. Tower shot,
Nice.
however, will take him down with the help of Zapman's final weave in there. And that'll leave it down to a 3 versus 1 to push this tier 1 tower.
Really good turnaround there from Shinto and Zap to be able to get Stewart at the very least, keep the Scarabs from being too healthy to be able to go and do a Fire Giant or something like that. But I just love this pace from the Scarabs. Don't worry too much about if everything's going perfectly. Don't let the Leviathans reset their mental. You know, just keep them under pressure and keep jumping in on this Raijin, on this Fenrir. Love the aggressiveness out of this 2v2, and you're seeing Baronic, like, I feel like I can read the body language of his character. He jumps in and then instantly like turns around and backs up. Like, was that okay? Is everyone, we're cool with that? Like, I'm allowed to jump in and not die for this? But he's jumping in at the right moments. I want to see him keep going. Jump in, hit 2 on the next guy. Trust that your damage is going to be there. Trust those damage numbers. Because he's finding his right moments. He's 1-1-6. He's doing good work and following up on what Scream's doing. Keep it going. Don't be scared. Keep getting in there.
And lead some of that trust onto your frontliners too. I mean, Solar Troll 0-1-8 right now, nearly full build. Inbound 0-0-5 onto the Terror. Only been a part of half of the kills, but those half have been very impactful for him, and is definitely looking a lot more confident in this game than he was at the tail end of last time. Around this same time of it, though, is where the Scarabs started falling apart against the Leviathans, but so far the Scarabs are holding out onto this, though their lead has shrunk a little bit more. Barely 1,000 gold separating the two teams as far as experience goes as well. That gap in the jungle is also beginning to narrow.
I mean, Scream got shut down by Panatom, and that was a maximum shutdown. He was 7-0, had way more levels than Panatom, and Panatom's still down 2 levels, which really says a lot. That he got that much of a shutdown bounty and is still down 2 levels. But that still was a lot of gold for the Leviathans to recoup. Doesn't surprise me that the gap is closing a bit.
Well, Zapman will chase him down off the horse, but Zapman will be able to dismount through, and he's like, hey, you forgot your treat here. Zapman will throw the banner under the tower. Panatom is here to try and turn this around, but Scream is what he managed to get out. Can't say the same for Stewart, though. 5 cross. Not enough time to get him out of there, and it might be a quick turnaround back onto Panatom. He leaps away, but immediately rooted out by inbound and taken down by Baronic.
A little sloppy there from the Scarabs, but hey, I keep saying, I don't care if it goes perfectly. Keep the pace high, and that's exactly what they're doing, so I'm not going to stress about it too much. They know Zap speeds were down. They play aggressive around him. They get a kill. Scream's in the right spot. He continues to get tankier and tankier. Now it's a Mystical Mail, 5th item. I don't know what I was expecting with Scream going back to the SPL, bro. I don't think we've seen Stone Cutting, Void Shield, Pridwin, Mystical on Thorn's Fenrir yet in the SPL, but that's just something Scream brings.
It looks like something when you go onto the SMITE randomizer and you slam the wheel down, you see it goes, Fenrir, all right, what's my build? You slam the button for it, and this is what it spits out for you. You just go, yeah, we'll make it work.
Yeah. He's making it work. He's 7-1-3 and been a part of 10 of 12 for the Solar Scarabs kills. I'm not arguing with him. I don't know if that's what I would build, but I'm not Lucas Spracklin. No one is.
That's why we're here, and that's why he's right there.
That's right.
Going up again for the Pyromancer. Scarabs do manage to secure it. Rongyu attempting to get in there with that leap, but not going to find it in time. Now a regrouping of the Scarabs here into the mid lane. 4 strong, looking for Shinto. Solar Troll going to be on the forefront of it. Throws out the Dragon Flight. The wall catches him on the back end, but he holds on to the beads this time, recognizing there's no further follow-up.
Big difference between this fight and last fight is that Rongyu's bot had upgraded Curse Tom. and that is going to make a big difference when it comes to this Terra Hole.
Panatom surging forward. Oni Fury goes the way of the Scarabs. Big knockup by SOT into the back, but he's going to get kicked against the wall by Panatom. Shinto pushes SOT away, and Rongyu collapses in with the mid laner to take him down, but they get the Oni Fury only in exchange for SOT.
Still cost them 4 ultimates and a decent amount of map position. Wouldn't be surprised if the Leviathans end up really coming out ahead on that trade, because that was an Oni Fury that the Scarabs got, and there is no pressure on any towers with these Oni waves. They're getting cleared at tower line, so that really wasn't worth that much for the Scarabs.
Rongyu D-transforms in the middle of everything. Shinto going to take quite a bit of damage from Scream. He pops the Thorns after the Sunder comes through. Yarkor with the up down, but a big drop kick from the jungler puts one in the grave. They end up trading out the solo laner for it, almost losing Panatom in the process. Now Rongyu on the worst end of it. Stewart will pick up the double kill.
Really good engagement from the Scarabs, and Shinto and Yark did a lot of work in that fight. I mean, Shinto put out a ton of damage. Yarkor had a huge stun with the up down, and it's like he never left. He's up down and left and right on this Bologna, just like solo laners are contractually required to do. And it's really turned these fights into pretty close engagements. Remember that whole time, Zap was clearing Oni Wave and left, and he got a tier 1 and a tier 2 tower during that fight. So even though the Scarabs come out on top, what, 2 for 1 or 3 for 1? Doesn't matter too much because Zap got a lot of gold coming back. Look, it's the Leviathans who get more golden experience.
And you can just see that graph shoot right back up in favor of Leviathans on to bring us to a essentially dead even game at this point in time. Fire Giant started up, down to about half, but a quick retreat from the Scarabs. Inbound will drop the Monolith on the back to get a little bit of healing the way of him and SOT, but just as quickly as they started up, the Leviathans pushed the Solar Scarabs away from the fire.
Don't mind that call from the Scarabs, you know, check and see if the Leviathans are awake, that they're paying attention, that the Fire Giant is an option for them. They don't have great DPS on it. Heimdall, not super good in that sort of area, especially when he's going with this bow build. Much better to kill objectives with crit, like what Zapman has gone for yet again on the Hachimon this time around. Fenrir normally pretty good on objectives because of his power stim and the build that he normally likes to go with stone cutting and serrated and things like that, but Scream's going full tank, so he's not going to be able to do, or nearly full tank, so he's not doing nearly as much to the objective as he normally would. So no surprise that it takes them a bit too long.
They're looking for Rongyu, but on the flip side, Leviathans are looking for Scream. They put him down very low, get the Ragnarok defensively out of the jungler, and Rongyu now posturing up on the front end of the fight. Opens the way for the tier 1 tower to go down. Leviathan still surging forward, and inbound has to use the wall for the second dash just to get back to safety, but I don't know if the tier 2 tower is what I would call a safe place, or so I think, but inbound goes in with a big 5-man ult, up, down, in from Panatom. Rongyu leaps onto inbound, and inbound is low. Zapman takes him out with an eagle eye shot from the back. SOT now getting low. He's on full retreat, and Yarkor's the one who goes in this time around, able to pick up that kill.
Good damage from Baronic's Psycho Drums, but that's the only good thing that happened after inbound's ultimate that fight. Zap was just pounding inbound with these crit autos, man. So much damage coming from this Hachimon. Was really rolling well on the crit, if I do say so myself. And it ends up paying off for the Leviathan's Hunter as he puts his old dual lane partner in the grave. Solar Troll just takes too much damage, and that whole play is opened up because of Scream, who's now going in 1v3.
And so far doing okay. He's going to put Zapman down to critical health, lose out on his Thorns and half of his health. Ragnarok will pick up Yarkor and quickly get the beads out of the solo laner. And into the back line goes Panatom looking for a nice drop kick. Stewart's going to get pushed away by the Dragonflight, and he'll turn it around and trade out 1-for-1 onto that one, dashing in with that ultimate aggressively. Shinto might need to be careful on the damage check from Baronic.
Man, that was close there for Stu. His auto killed his target for Through the Realms, and it nearly took him straight into Shinto. What a play that would have been if he would have been able to make that happen. But at the end of the day, trades Yarkor for Stewart. What I was going to say was at the very beginning of that whole engagement, it starts by Scream getting almost one-tapped off of a single hammer coming from Rongyu. It's got its hammer, Sunder, Morgan Le Fay damage. And for as tanky as Scream is, it's not against magicals. And you're feeling it now. And it's no spectral. So it's not as effective. You know, if that mystical mail is a spectral armor instead, I think he looks much tankier. But without it, I'm concerned about how tanky Scream's really going to be. And in a meta where tanks don't feel that tanky come late game because Upgraded Sunder is so good. The value of going a tank build isn't really there for Scream, and I think that he's been able to be the initiator. He's trying to let Stewart and Baronic do a little bit more of the heavy lifting when it comes to the late game damage, and Baronic and Stewart have done pretty well in that department, but you're seeing how hard it is to be effective even as a tank Fenrir now in this meta come late game.
Well, the Scarabs have the positional advantage around the Fire Giant. 4 of them grouped up, and Baronic on the way back from base as he's finished up his Spear of the Magus for his 6th item after what looks to be selling his starter item on top of that one. So now he's fully 6-slotted. Same side on Shinto, who's gone for a defensive option instead by going with that Mantle of Discord. It's been a very popular mid-lane defense item, popularized, I think, primarily by Paul, but a lot of people have been following in his footsteps.
If something like a Fenrir is going to be on you all the time, Mantle feels awfully good.
Well, speaking of Fenrir, Scream's going to grab Yarkor and bring him into the clutches of all. Into the realms goes Yarkor, waiting to land back down, but nobody's focused onto him. Instead, they're all focused on Baronic, who falls down. Shinto gets 1, and Rongyu turns around to get Stewart. SOT going to try and zone away with the War Cry, but now he's on a full run as 3 strong from Leviathans are pushing forward.
Man, Baronic did a great... Baronic and Stu, I thought, played that fight pretty well, but their front line couldn't keep Shinto's damage off.
SOT is going to get caught out here. Dragonfly puts him against the wall, and Zapman is just pumping basic after basic to try and grab him. Nice done by Rongyu. We'll manage to find him, and Zapman can clean up the kill.
Beautifully done, and this is the problem, is that, yeah, we can kill the front line. We'll pick up the tank and bring him back, and then Panatom jumps in and nearly gets 100-0 by Tycho Drums. We're feeling good for the Scarabs, but someone has got to get in there and stop the damage coming from Shinto.
Wildfire misses from Shinto, and Scream and Inbound are still in the wings ready to strike. Inbound will walk up to the ring, but immediately the Leviathans are going to turn away from it. Scream jumps over them just to reposition. Inbound going to get shoved up into the sky by the Dragonflight, and Zapman will be the one to take him down. Now it's just Scream left alone. He'll use the Ragnarok and pick up 1 and try and drop him on the Fire Giant, but it's not going to be enough. The Fire Giant's still low from the previous leash, and the Leviathans will clean it up.
I like the idea from Scream. Very smart to try and use the fire to pull it and hope that you get a knock-up and that it hadn't reset fully, and maybe you can get the kill that way. Doesn't end up working out for him. It's Fire Giant for all 5 members of the Leviathans, as they had some fortuitous timing right as Yarkor and Panatom respawn. The fight with Inbound and Scream ended, so they could just walk right in and pick up the fire for everybody.
Now back on base defense goes the Scarabs, same positioning they had last game, but this time Leviathans look towards the right side Phoenix first, and they'll meet it with no contest. That bird will fall down quickly, and the minions will make sure to clean up the mid-tier 2 tower so they can make their way straight to the Phoenix immediately.
Not a lot of pen in the build here for Stewart. I'm only counting 10%. In fact, a little bit of flat pen from the Aussie, but 10% pen when the whole comp is, I'm going to pick up a frontliner and bring them to you. You kill him for me. He needs more than that. I'm just not. I like Zap's build for crit. It's good in general, but I like the idea of selling your starter if you're going the benevolent starter. I really don't think Animosity for ADCs. There, like I said, I haven't done that much testing for it. I just find it hard to believe that proc is better than getting Silver Branch in this spot, or Dominance, or Titan's Bane. Just percent pen is awfully good, and I have a hard time believing that Animosity is doing more than that would do.
I'm not sure those extra percent of your low health, because you're not building any health on these hunters, so you're not really getting that same value that, like, say, a Gilgamesh or a Bellona is going to have when they are opting into those more health-based options.
Exactly. The build and your just per level scaling on your HP pool, those things level up, your HP pool pretty heavily. You feel that difference noticeably without it, in my mind. I don't know. I think that, keep an eye on Stewart. We'll see. Maybe he can kill Yarkor and Panatom and Rongyu easy, even without the extra percent.
Rongyu walks in the Emperor's Armor, going to start doing a little bit of work there on the side of the Leviathan, slowing down the attacks coming out of the Phoenix, but they're not willing to commit just yet. Minion wave will fall down just as quickly as it steps forward. Solar Troll eats a Wildfire. Yarkor and Rongyu going to step into the Phoenix line, but immediately step back out again.
This is going to have to be a blink in from Inbound to get the fight started. You really don't want to hit your own team too much with Earth and Fury whenever the Curse Sonk's on the battlefield. You want to try and just apply it as a damage proc for the rest of the enemy team so that you don't have to worry about getting anti-healed.
Bubble down for screen. That allows for the drop kick, and an immediate Phoenix goes down as well. Both those warriors with that animosity really stacking up against that structure. So that's 2 Phoenixes down, yet again for the Scarabs. Now they're down to their last one on the left-hand side, and that's where they're bolstering their defenses for it. Solar Troll a little bit low, but so is Rongyu, who's continuing to tank up this Phoenix. Neither team wanting to pull the trigger just yet, just taking this slow burn.
No reason for the Leviathans to rush it. Look at this. Fire minions coming in on the right. Big wave coming in mid. Why try and rush it? Nice and patient.
SOT is going to be the first one to jump in. Gets a nice 2-man ult. Inbound, however, is at half health. Dragonflight comes through with the Sunder on top. Into the back goes Panatom and your core. You're going to get one with the Through the Realms and landing right back down, but Scream jumps into the backline onto Yarkor. Tycho drums come through, but it's only onto the solo laner. Yarkor healthy enough to live through for the time. Percussive Storm and Raiju not enough to take him down. Baronic has to Aegis very early on in Thunder Crash. Back to the fountain, but Scream doesn't have that same option. He gets sent back the hard way.
Boy, what a big burst of damage coming there from the Morgan Le Fay. Is Rongyu, 1 HP, jumping in, no fear, and for good reason. My man's is good.
But he baits Inbound and Stewart inside the fight with it, and because of it, they're only down to 2 now on this defense. But they're able to trade one out. SOT picks up Panatom, and everybody on the Leviathan's a little bit low, but so is the Titan. The minions have been putting in some good work during the fight, and in goes the Leviathans to close this one out. I say that, and there they go. We'll finally manage to drop this one. Baronic getting one last little kill there for the Scarabs, but the Leviathans ultimately close out and bring it to a 2-0.
Look, I mean, good starts for the Scarabs. They're doing things well in the early game. Got to work on finishing it, you know, making sure that we understand how to transition this lead. They did better in Game 2 than they did in Game 1. They're still learning their identity. This is still a new team. I think if I'm the Scarabs, I don't feel that bad about how these games went. These were winnable games. You didn't get blown out. Leviathans took care of business. You know, this is the team that is expected to be better right now. I'm expecting big things from the Leviathans moving forward.
And with that, the Leviathans will get the 2-0 victory here over the Scarabs and put them back and put themselves up one more position into the boards. We'll come back with the desk right after the break.
Aggro here. Look, every single year, the SPL just keeps getting better. Season 7 was incredible. And in Season 8, I'm sure our players are going to take their game to the next level. But in order to do that, they're going to need the best gear they can get their hands on. And that's why I'm so excited to announce the title sponsor for Season 8 of the SPL is Alienware. Yeah, that Alienware. Our players are getting the best of the best in computer gaming. These Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition PC setups are insane. Not only will these be the PCs that the players will compete on once we are in studio, but Alienware is also providing one for each player at their home setup to make sure their practice is as good as possible. Now let's get down to brass tacks. The specs on these Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition desktops are amazing. An AMD Ryzen 9 16-core processor.
That's a lot of cores.
That's plenty of processing power.
Plenty of cores.
If you want to stream, this is the way to go.
I know a lot about my cores, so. I mean, Pilates, right?
64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM.
What? Is that true?
That is true.
I mean, this thing has 64 gigs of DDR4 RAM.
Which you can do literally anything with.
Literally anything.
I've never had more than 16 gigs.
That's quadruple the amount I have at home.
And one of the hottest commodities in the PC world, an NVIDIA GeForce 3090 graphics card.
Insane how much better this is than what I have.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course.
Content's gonna look good.
What's the point of all the power if you can't see it? Players will also be using the Alienware 25-inch 240 Hz monitors.
Man, when I load into scrims with this bad boy, I'm gonna feed so hard. And it's gonna be in perfect picture quality.
We are so excited to be partnering with Alienware for Season 8 of the SMITE Pro League. And the best part is, this VIP treatment, it's not just for the pros. You too can get the best possible SMITE experience. Just go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW to get special discounts on some of Alienware's best products. Thanks again to Alienware. Make sure you're following them on Twitter and Instagram. That's @Alienware on both platforms. And you can join their community at alienwarearena.com.
And you're telling me an alien wore this?
Well, what can I add that Aggro didn't already say there in that one? 16-core processor, 64 gigs of DDR4 RAM. Are you kidding me? That's like 4 times what I've got at home. And an alien wore this. Go to SmiteGame.com.
You can go to dang old SmiteGame.com.
You got in my head during that break where we're talking all southern to one another. SmiteGame.com/Alienware. Use code SMITEAW, and you can get your hands on one of those 16-core processors and 64 gigs of DDR4 RAM. The content's gonna look good. As that man said it best. Follow them on Twitter and Instagram @Alienware, and go to AlienwareArena.com to join their growing global community. And I said it right that time.
You know what?
What?
That man's content's looking pretty good now, isn't it?
It is looking pretty good, right? It is looking fantastic. He's probably a lot happier with the way the content itself has been going. It's always looked great because he's been playing on an Alienware machine.
Yeah.
But the actual content that he's putting out now as a player for the Leviathans has been looking really good. And this game is another indication of that. This one probably feels bad for the Scarabs because they are ahead of this game pretty handily. Kills-wise.
Yeah.
Gold-wise, still somewhat close. The Leviathans never fell super far behind. But this felt like all Scarabs all day in the first handful of minutes. They didn't get first blood, but then Scream kind of went on a tear. Unfortunately, couldn't close out the game.
Yeah, I would argue it felt like Scream for most of it. In fact, there was a lot of setup and a lot of help. Like you can see SOT obviously involved in this. It's not all on Scream. But Scream is a part of all these kills and the one who's getting all these kills. He did a great job. I will give some shout-outs. Stuart also put up a lot of kills, and I think it showcases a lot. And hear me out here. Very reminiscent of a game that the Scarabs had against the Dragons not too long ago, where the Scarabs were winning a ton of the fights, but it didn't translate into, like you said, like this crazy, massive, steamrolly lead that we're used to seeing. And they did a lot better, I think, this time than they did against that Dragons, and that was the very first game they ever played against the Dragons. And they turned that set around. If you're getting that kind of performance already out of this team, and this is the 4th game they've played with Scream, yep. I think it implies a lot for them. So I'm excited to see how the Scarabs are going to do going going forward. But it also goes to showcase something Aggro had said, which is being able to take these leads and play with these leads and turn them into something more, and that sometimes the teams that aren't necessarily as used to having them don't know where to run away with it.
Yeah.
And you could kind of see that, not necessarily getting lost in the sauce, but that the Leviathans have played from ahead, they played from even, they played from behind, and they used that knowledge really well and transitioned into what was a pretty decently sized deficit into, Scream was like 6-0, maybe 8-0 at one point, ends up 8-4. Stuart was like 8-1, ends up 8-4 or something like that. It really just translates heavily into how well the Leviathans are capable of playing, not just in any scenario in Smite, whether they're ahead, behind, or even, but also as a team, because it's when they started those 5-on-5 groupings that, again, they just flipped the switch and started to take off.
Yeah, look, this is another example of a game where the Scarabs don't win, but it gives you some confidence in moving forward and their ability to grow and build this roster into something good. And you've mentioned how if there's a time to make changes and get the ball rolling, phase 2 is that time, right? The Leviathans are there, though. This is a team that's here, they're now, and they're playing really, really good Smite. Yarkor joins me now for the post-game interview. We'll hear his thoughts after taking on the new-look Solar Scarabs. Yarkor, thanks for sitting down with me first and foremost. Talk to me a little bit, though. We haven't really gotten a chance to talk to opponents of the Solar Scarabs. How was it going up against this new team? Do you feel a little bit extra pressure from Scream and Stuart here in Game 2 specifically? What are your thoughts on the new Scarabs roster? Might be muted over there, Yarkor. I don't know if computer or...
Yeah, hi.
We got you now. We got you, Yarkor. Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I think they're playing really good. I think that Game 2 show like how good they can be.
Yep.
If they have like a really good lead. I think they made a few mistakes in a few fights, but that's thing that you will get better with time.
Right.
Like
those sorts of
with
things
everyone
build up.
knowing what they wanna do, yeah. But I think they're now a better team. So
Yep.
it will be nice to see how they improve on what they're gonna do now and then.
How about you, Yarkor? We got Zatman on your team now. You're back over in the solo lane. Is it like you never left? Are you liking your time back in the solo lane while Zatman does the ADC thing over on the other side of the map?
Yeah, I think right now I don't play that well in the role. I mean, I used to like play a lot, then I switch, then I came back. Right now I have to just grind a lot and play a lot of the game right now back again, and I love that. So
yeah,
that is what I'm going to do. I enjoy having Sap in comms. Sap in comms is one of the things that we feel more comfortable with. Yeah, because his relic usage, we can discuss a lot about that. Well, what he brings to the table is really help us out a lot to us.
Yeah.
Because we're still young, so we are
Sure.
like getting the knowledge that he has and the decision that sometimes we try to do and they say this thing and the other thing, and then we get to a point that we just took the bad decision every single time. And that is where we're gonna to improve with time too.
Yep.
So that is going to be better for us as well. So
look, the thought of this team getting better, I think, is scary to the other 7 teams in the league, and really exciting for everyone else who's sitting back and watching. And we can't wait to see that growth happen. Yarkor, congrats on the win, and thanks for sitting down with me.
yeah, thanks. Goodbye.
And so maybe a word of warning to the rest of the SPL here. There's still room to grow for this Leviathans team, and they're looking great right now. Back-to-back wins after the roster change, after back-to-back Game 3 losses where the team still looked good. So you could say 4 straight sets, at least, this Leviathans team has looked great. Gormizer, this is a look back at this week in the SPL. Only 2 3-game sets. I don't know, were there, I'm trying to remember, all of our predictions, I think, were correct this week. I think Aggro was the only one who flipped from us. He said Titans. For what it's worth, that was close. It was a 3-game set. But I think this weekend win is expected.
And you know what? That first game, it had everything on the rails there for the Titans. Game 2 definitely started to slip. Game 3 was definitely a Kings game. And so, yeah, here they are. Yeah,
Wow.
Aggro. Look at that. Aggro getting it wrong. Let's go, baby.
I'm clapping for production. I briefly mentioned our predictions, and then we got them right here and ready to go.
Yo, you know what? Pat on the back to chat.
And you know what?
Look at
chat.
that.
We'll give chat a round of applause here as well. A killer week for all the casters here, and then chat as well. But we sort of assumed that this would be how this week goes. Last weekend we had a lot of very close standings-wise matchups. This week we moved away from that, sort of different sides of the standings, except for some of those teams there in the middle. We have broken up the grouping in the middle just a little bit. The Oni Warriors and the Titans started at 3-3 alongside the Leviathans and the Dragons, but now we've flipped 5-3 for both Leviathans and the Dragons, and the Oni Warriors dropped down to 3-5. Valkyries and Scarabs tied up at 1-7 apiece. And Gormizer, the takeaway's got to be the Olympus Bolts up top there at 8-0. You were the one putting out the tweets, so maybe you can remind me.
I got
10.
you. I'm prepped for
10
this.
is the longest set win streak, right?
So the way it works, if you're looking at like regular season only, there was 8. Bolts have matched that already. You add in post game, all of a sudden you go back to the NRG days. They got 10. They managed to get, I think it was 5 at the end of the fall, and it's just sets in a row, right? They had a phase. Look, they had a phase where they got 27 wins and 1 loss in terms of game win-loss. It's just an awkward 1-1 tie right in the middle that ruined it. But it's moved them to a point where, as you said, 10 sets is the number to match, and the Bolts are going to have a struggle doing that.
They could get to it next weekend. We'll
but
see.
Look at their next week.
Right, yeah, their next week is going to be hefty, I have to imagine, for this Olympus Bolts team. We'll get a look at that schedule of next week. Where are the Bolts? They got to play the Kings.
Yep.
And they got to play the Titans. Yep. So, Camelot Kings stand in the way of, and the Tartarus Titans, of course, as well. But that first matchup against the Camelot Kings could make it all not matter at all. And then that would be 9. And then the Tartarus Titans would stand between the Olympus Bolts and the 10-0, which, if I'm understanding your assessment there correctly, that would tie.
And then the week after, for those of you keeping track, the first set they would play is the Scarabs.
What a good set on Thursday. Gore, there's a Dragons Leviathan set this weekend. Wow. We've got some great SMITE to look forward to. Bolts and Camelot Kings in the next matchup on that would be Friday, so a different day. But wow, there is a lot to look forward to.
Scarabs Titans, like it sounds like one that it's maybe easier to glance over, but that's actually one that I think is going to be a lot more interesting given what we just saw from the Scarabs. I think, especially from what we saw from the Titans today, that's going to be a decision maker. We might see the Scarabs do what I guess is considered an upset. I mean, they're 1-7 right now. I would call that an upset and really start to climb these ranks. Granted, again, the last half, it's going to be a lot more difficult to get those wins in that win column, and when you already have 7 in the loss, it's definitely hard to make it look as nice as you would like it and get it pretty. But anything that's higher than 1-7 right now, 2-7, 3-7, 3-8, it doesn't necessarily matter. As long as you can start tacking on any wins or at least making them good losses, it'll be a successful run to me.
What are you doing on Thursday, Go? You want to hang out and watch Oni Warriors and Valkyries?
I might
Dragons
mess around
Leviathans?
And watch some SBL. Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, don't you want to just kick your feet up sometimes and watch some of the awesome SMITE games we have? Luckily, everyone at home, you guessed everything right this weekend. Good luck on your predictions next weekend because who knows what's going to happen. That's the beauty of the SPL. That's it for this weekend in the SPL, though. Make sure to tune in tomorrow. The Leviathans are coming in studio for a live content day. That's 1 to 4 p.m. Eastern time right here on twitch.tv/SMITE game. Don't worry if you miss it. It'll be on the SMITE Pro YouTube as well. But on behalf of myself,